All right, I think we're live. So welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. So it's been a crazy week, but I hope you're all doing okay. And yeah, thanks so much for tuning in and hanging out with me here on this Sunday night. So like all the other usual live streams, we're going to go for about 2 hours or so. We give priority answering to anyone who does a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member there with the green usernames. They always get that priority answering. If you'd also like that, there's always join buttons here on the video page, channel page, and a link in the description. And so yeah, happy to see so many of you here joining in. And so I see Triton Car Guy. Thanks for rejoining. I really appreciate it. And said he has to resolve something there on YouTube's end. So I'm glad to see you back here. And thanks so much for your support as well and continued support. And see Brian, Kyle, Anthony, Cars, B. Mitchell, Austin, Vishal, Luke, Jazz, and yeah, Wheatman, Danny there, yeah, Good Stick, and Sean, Two Track. Thank you all so much. And Brian, thank you so much for gifting a membership already. I really appreciate that. And happy to see Spike Money was able to grab that there. And so yeah, getting right into the questions here. Let me go ahead and mute that. Let me see. Everyone just saying hello here. B. Mitchell says, Happy U.S. Marine Corps birthday, even if I'm a former Air Force. Well, yeah, I didn't realize it was the Marines' birthday. That's awesome. And yeah, thank you to all of you who serve. And let me see. Other greetings. And Luke says, do you remember the GMC Envoy XUV? I think something like that would sell like hotcakes these days. I agree, totally agree. It's kind of strange. GM was ahead of the ball and all that stuff, and they're kind of quirky back then, and now that none of that stuff's anywhere to be seen. That's interesting. And Brian, thank you for gifting another membership there. I really appreciate that. Happy to see that Omar was able to grab that. And Triton Car Guy says, before I forget, I saw both a nice clean stock S13 240SX, the one with pop-up lights, and a Civic Del Sol. That's awesome. Always cool to see those. My fun spot of the week was yesterday. I was cruising on the highway very briefly with a Ferrari 430. And man, I haven't seen a 430 in a while, and it was really nice to see, kind of up close as it was just cruising alongside me. I don't know. I think they're a little underappreciated. It seems like the manual ones are now starting to skyrocket in value, which is unfortunate because the F1 transmissions on those I've heard aren't very good. And so the manual's really the way to go. But now they're getting, out of the affordable supercar phase and back into the actual expensive supercar phase. But I think the 430 to me takes on new appeal because now it's slow, but that's kind of good because you can ring out that amazing sounding Ferrari V8 and not be immediately thrown in jail. And, to me, I actually would prefer that. This week I have a Lexus LC500 press vehicle, and that's another example of that, where it's something that's, not a lot of horsepower. It's less than 500 horsepower, but it sounds fantastic. You can ring it out and it's fast enough, that you can have fun. You don't feel like you're going slow, but, you can actually enjoy it in a more responsible way than everything it does 0 to 60 in the blink of an eye. So, yeah, that was my fun spot of the week. And Austin says, I had a 93 Del Sol SI. I kind of wish I'd never sold it. Yeah, I feel like something like that would definitely be worth keeping around, especially these days. He says he sold it for $3,500 in 2008. That's crazy. I see Danny also says he had two cool spots. One was the Integra Type S, white on bronze wheels. Very nice. The other was a mint condition 2007 Ford Ranger Tremor. Nice. That's awesome. Actually, another cool spot this week, I had to bring the Mach-E in for a service update. And I guess one of the mechanics of the Ford dealership around back had parked a Japanese Integra Type R. It was right-hand drive, and it wasn't the quad eye thing. It was the skinny, narrow lights. I don't know the exact years for that, but obviously earlier than the ones we got here in the States. But it was just hanging out in the back lot. I was like, whoa, that is sweet. And it was pretty much stock too. Very nicely done, my Integra Type R. It was really cool to see that too. Let me see. Truck and Car Guy says, still was my first car, a 93 Civic Coupe. Yeah, one of my good friends had a 94 Civic, and in high school, we'd be zipping around in that thing. He got pulled over once. I think we were doing like 90 or something in that little thing. And yeah, good times in those 90 Civics. And sorry, I missed everyone else the gifting memberships here. Sean, thank you so much for gifting a membership. I really appreciate that. And MDK, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships as well. I'm happy to see a bunch of people able to get those, but it seems like the YouTube algorithm just has no love for giving Danny a membership here so far tonight. Sorry, Danny. Hopefully it happens here. And thanks for stopping by, though, still, Danny. And I'll try and get to some questions here from non-members as well here tonight. And Sean, thank you, though, for the first super chat of the night. He says, if I wanted a sporty exotic car, Carrera 4S are still a price I could justify. I would gasp, get the auto, though, since it would be a daily. Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, Carreras are great. I think I kind of have an affinity for the 997s myself, and they're really good. I mean, yeah, the automatics, unfortunately, in my opinion, weren't very good back then. But yeah, older 911s, I still do not have any love for the 996s. But any of the other ones, some of the ones from like the 80s, I'm not in love with either. And like early 90s, 993s are cool, but like the ones right before that, is it 964? I don't know, but yeah, but most of them are pretty sweet. So yeah, used Carreras, if you can find one at a reasonable price, is I think probably always a fun buy as well. And thank you again, Sean, for the super chat there. And let me see, where were we? Good Six says, with the election, Tesla stock went up like crazy, but every other manufacturer went down. Yeah, well, I mean, I think there's a decent reason why that is the case. I mean, we know the stock market's irrational, and it's very fickle and silly. I mean, Tesla's valuation is just ridiculous. It gained more. I saw it gained more this week than all of Toyota's valuation on the stock market on the whole. Like, Tesla just gained Toyota's entire market value just over the course of this week. And Tesla just sells a fraction of the cars globally that Toyota does. Like, that should tell you all you need to know about how valuation is completely detached from all reality and all fundamentals anymore with a lot of these stocks and most of these stocks these days. It's all just, it's gambling. It's a betting. It's all it is. It used to be there's some fundamentals and there was some common sense kind of stuff in place for some of these things, and there still is, obviously. Not everything is bonkers backwards in the stock market, but a lot of it is these days, and it's just it's completely detached from reality. That's part of why I tried playing the stock market over the past few years here off and on, and trying to use any kind of fundamentals with any kind of short-term trading is near impossible. It is really just like playing other people. It's like a card game, because again, the market is so irrational, and the sheep that just pile on when they see a trend and hope that they don't get caught at the top or the bottom. It's kind of just bizarre and hilarious and sad in some ways as well. But yeah, Tesla stock continues to make 0 sense from a valuation standpoint. And Austin said old school Hondas just had a magic quality. I agree totally. They just were indestructible, just so good. And see, Sean's also asking how everyone's doing. Curious, everyone, they want to chime in on how they're doing here. But let me see. B. Mitchell said his shares of GM went up as well. Well, that's good that at least some other companies are seeing a little bump here. Again, it's the stock market though, so you might see a bump now, you might see a dip later. Who knows? I know I've been reading there's some other big investors that are liquidating a bunch, planning on something to dump or a lot of things to dump, and then buying them back at a huge discount, just like we saw, with the COVID crash a few years ago, and how that, made so many people so much richer because they knew to get out and buy back in for pennies on the dollar. So I think some people are kind of preparing for something like that here in the future at some point too. But let me see. So Vishal says, I've been seeing a lot of Equinox EVs in my area. They seem to be doing well so far. I'm starting to see them little by little as well. I mean, I think, yeah, it totally makes sense. It's a really good value for the money, in my opinion. And yeah, glad that they're actually, building them in decent numbers and doing really well with that. And Jeffrey Diesel, thank you so much for joining the club here. I appreciate that, and looking forward to chatting with you here tonight. If you have any questions, I'll be sure to, make sure I answer all of those. And welcome. Looks like you are a new member as well, so welcome to the club. And be sure to take advantage of all the other perks. There's a members tab with some exclusive videos, and the monthly upload schedule, and there's also a Discord server as well. If you'd like to hop into that, send me a message and we can get you the link there to hop into that as well. But let me see other questions here. Luke says, on my drive from Arizona to Iowa, I saw 3 Toyota Hilux near El Paso, Texas. That's cool. I don't think I've ever seen a Hilux, honestly, outside of maybe I saw them in my European adventures, past few years. But yeah, that's awesome. That's such a legendary truck. B. Mitchell said the manual anything Ferraris are skyrocketing. Yeah, I think everyone's realizing that is actually the most desirable thing. It's crazy that even just as recently as like Aston Martin with the manual Vantage just a couple of years ago, they offered it for a few years. No one bought them still. And it's like, we were already seeing this trend a couple of years ago and still no one bought manual Vantages. And they're like, oh, no one wants it. We'll just get rid of it. And now those are going to skyrocket as well. I don't understand why the second it becomes a used car, all of a sudden everyone wants to pay top dollar for it. But whenever they're offered new, these, exotic buyers don't go for it. Hopefully we'll see that trend start to change. We know it's changing at the very top hypercar kind of level with the Gordon Murray T50 and others like it that are, offering manuals, Pagani, Utopia and stuff like that. But, I'm hoping that does trickle down and we see, resurgence of manuals, within Ferrari, within Lamborghini and stuff. I'm not holding my breath for that, but I think that is a trend that they can't ignore forever. And I think kind of Porsche's already figuring it out. And I hope that, other companies kind of take note of Porsche, take note of, Pagani and some of the top end stuff, and maybe, do something like that in the future for other brands. But Silvanum says, I think the conversion kits will become popular for automated manuals. Yeah, I mean, that's cool too. There's I guess it divides collectors, I guess you could call them. You divide up the people between the people who actually want to drive them and don't really care about the value as much. I mean, it seems like they do hold their value decently well with the conversions, but it's not all original at that point. And long term, typically collectors do want something that is original, and so when you start modifying stuff, that can kind of mess the value up. So it's kind of a gamble to me if you are buying a conversion kit car or converting one yourself, as far as what you're going to get resale, longer term. Hopefully, it works out okay. And I mean, again, at the end of the day, if you're enjoying the car more, it's worth it, in my opinion, regardless of what the value is. But that's only the tricky thing with those. But otherwise, yeah, I'm so happy to see that they're offering more and more of those conversion kits, and hopefully that's something we'll see a lot more of, and hopefully maybe at some cheaper prices down the road as well. Let me see. I see Low Rockstar. Thanks for stopping by. I says, hope you and the family are well. Can't wait for your C801 video, hopefully next year. I hope that happens next year as well. That would be fun, and keep my fingers crossed. That's going to be a wild car. I see Bradley's also asking what I think about the Mazda Protege and Protege 5. I think they're awesome. Always thought they were cool. And Brian says, hi, Matt. Do you know when the new Toyota 4Runner is supposed to be ready to be reviewed? Yes, I know when I will be driving it. I don't think I'm at liberty to say yet, because there hasn't been any kind of like formal announcements or anything like that. Yeah, I don't think I can say really. I mean, it's not a huge deal, but I'm not going to be the first because I haven't seen anyone else talk about that yet. So I'm not going to be the first one to say that, in case that's something the Toyota doesn't want to share just yet. But But yes, I know I'll be reviewing it, and I guess I can say it's not going to be super far away from now. So that's vague enough. Hopefully, it's probably not very helpful, but yes, I will be reviewing Forerunner here in the not too distant future. And Anthony says, I was getting the oil changed on my TLX and saw a beautiful 93 NSX. What a car. Nice. Yes, it's always great to see one of those. Austin says, I feel like I'm getting old because I'm getting tired of driving manual. I mean, it really comes down to your commute and stuff like that as well, I think. But it's also personality and yeah, everyone has different tolerances. And like I was even just thinking, whenever I had that Miata for a week not too long ago, like, do I really want to keep bending in and out of a Miata? Like, would that be something? Because I always thought, if I didn't need a back seat, like I'd just go get a Miata. Like, they're reliable, they're fun, they're great little cars, and they're cheap. And but now I'm like, I don't know if I actually would want something that small and that low, especially these days, again, with every urban cowboy around here and some gigantic truck. I just, I don't know. I think for me, it's now, I think Miata personally is something I probably wouldn't ever get. As much as I love them, I don't think it's something I'd ever own myself. I think now it's, especially with how cheap F-types are getting, if I'm going to get a two-door sports car with no back seat, I think an F-type's more my speed because it's a little heavier, which makes me feel better from a physics standpoint. It's a little bit higher, so it's a little easier to get in and out of. And it's honestly not basically the same price as an ND2 Miata anyway. Obviously, probably will be a little bit sketchier from a reliability standpoint, but they don't seem to be that bad from what I've seen, honestly, with some of those newer Jags. So that would probably be the way I'd go. But again, getting back to same sentiment there of just me feeling like an old person because I don't want to like hobble in and out of something that's like sitting on the ground. So I can kind of relate a little bit to you there. Zachary says no random Mexican trucks this week, but I did see 2 dark horses out on the road. Nice, that's cool. I maybe have saw one this summer, but I don't think I've actually seen more than one. It's I don't know. I mean, I see a few 2024 Mustangs off and on, but I honestly don't see a ton around here. And I haven't seen a bunch of like sporty ones. Most of the ones I've seen are just like EcoBoosts, and I honestly don't think I've seen very many GTs at all. So I don't know how this generation is going over. Honestly, it doesn't seem like it's doing as well as I feel like I saw S550s pop up a lot quicker in 2015 and late 2014 than I've seen with S650s over the past now year and a half or whatever. And let me see. Miles is also asking, do you and Beth plan on buying out the Mach-E or getting a different car? We're going to just wait and see on that. It's going to come down to what the Mach-E is worth, how happy we are with it by that point in time, and also just what other new things are out there by 2026. There's a lot of these car companies are saying it's going to be an awesome new this, that, or the other coming out in 2026. A lot of that's kind of a common date we hear for a lot of these, future EVs and stuff. And so there might be some really cool new options to consider. So we're not finalized on anything just yet. I think it's fairly safe to say that we will probably let the Mach-E go because I think the buyout on it is like right around 20 grand, if I remember correctly. And the thing is already only worth like 23 to 25 on trade-in because they just plummeted in value. And I can't imagine it's going to hold that last $3,000 to $5,000 over the next 18 or 20 months or so that we still have left on that, lease. So chances are we'll let it go. If we like Mach-E's really well, then there's a chance we maybe, buy another cheap 20 grand Mach-E, but like, buying ours for 20, if it's only worth 15 or something by that point, wouldn't make any sense. So that's pretty certain that we'll just let this one go, but we could end up in another one. We actually just, when we took hers in for service, we saw the Eruption green one that they had on the lot. And it's really nice. Beth and I both love green cars. So maybe, we swap into something like that or, any of the other new stuff that comes. We'll just have to wait and see. And also it'll come down to what our budget is at that point. I think she definitely wants to stick with an EV. And I think already even right now there's an EV for every budget. So, we'll just figure out what what we can swing at that point in time and go from there. But we'll definitely keep you guys posted on our decision-making process as we get closer to the summer of 2026, when that we'll have to actually turn in the Mach-E. But and Antonio, thanks for stopping by. I hope everything's good. Hope everything's good with you. Thanks for stopping by. Linda, thanks for stopping by as well. MDKN says, we love it, Matt. Always enjoy these streams, and only channel I do the gifting for. Well, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for that generosity and the support and all that. It's really nice. And Sean says, I love any Porsche I could actually afford, even if the upper class would roll their eyes at me. Oh, yeah. I mean, who cares what anyone else thinks? Enjoy your car. If you love it, yeah, put on the blinders and just enjoy the experience. Don't ever do anything for anybody else like that, especially when it's a purchase like a car. And Shrunken Car Guy, thanks so much for gifting 5 memberships there. Really appreciate that generosity. And happy to see a bunch of new faces there, I think, and getting a lot of those memberships. That's awesome. And Luke, I'm sorry, I missed your gifts as well. Thank you so much for gifting a membership there too. And yeah. I see Danny says YouTube really hates me. Yeah, sorry, Danny. I do really wish I had some kind of control over how to direct them, or at least just give them to people who are actually in the live stream. That seems like a logical thing, but YouTube doesn't often do that. And let me see. Two-Track says, I saw a 58 Packard a few weeks back. From a distance, I thought it was a Tri-5 Chevy. As I was moving away from checking it out, some local kids excitedly took notice of it too. Made my heart happy. That is surprising. Yeah, that young kids were excited about that. That is great to hear, especially a 58 Packard. I feel like most kids have zero clue what that is, but that's awesome. B. Mitchell says, drove a 996 turbo on a rally in Oregon almost a decade ago. Reminded me of the automatic in the Chrysler 300M winter beater that I had at the time. Yeah, they're not great. I mean, I had a lot of experiences in those when I worked at a Porsche dealer in high school and college. They're fast, I can tell you that. But yeah, not great from an engagement standpoint there. And Linda, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate the generosity there as well. And man, yeah, YouTube just no love for for Danny there. It's unfortunate, but thank you so much, Linda, for that generosity, and happy to see again. I think some familiar faces and some new ones there as well. And let me see, where are we? So I see Zachary's there's an NSX in his local showroom. That's awesome. Jazz says, have you thought about doing videos on stocks in the auto industry? Seems like you have an interest in the topic. Yeah, but I'm not any kind of expert, or I don't follow it nearly enough to make any kind of intelligent assessments. Tesla's just like a common stock people are often talking about, and it's an easy one to kind of keep an eye on. But yeah, and there's also, I'm not entirely sure. I haven't looked into this, but because I don't have any stock holdings in any car companies, because I'm not totally sure how that works legally, because I do get embargoed information ahead of time. And, I mean, I guess maybe if I made a transaction knowing that stuff in advance, then that would maybe, be a legal gray area there. But just like owning stock in a company and then doing a review on it, again, not like my review is going to bump the stock up or anything, but I kind of am a little iffy about owning any stock. I mean, there's companies I believe in and I would invest in, but again, just because of me getting advanced info on stuff, and because I'm, could potentially in a very far shot kind of way, benefit from the things I say, then boosting the stock. It's obviously, it's not as much as some of these bros that pump stocks and then get, hunted down by, the SEC and all that. But anyway, it's just something I haven't wanted to have any kind of conflict of interest there or anything. But Good success with Trump taking away the tax credit. Would Tesla benefit the most compared to other automakers? I don't know. I mean, I would say if we were talking about this back whenever the, highest selling brands had phased out of the tax credit, for a while there, Tesla didn't have the tax credit. GM also didn't have it because they sold too many Bolts. And, so they didn't have that credit there for a while. So for some of those brands, we're talking a couple of years ago, yes, that would have helped them. But, with the way they're set up currently, Tesla benefits as well from the tax credit right now. and it lowers the prices of all these things. Now, if that tax credit gets removed here and um, everyone just has their pricing the way it is, could Tesla still undercut the others? Sure. And they have some older product that, I think is a little bit easier to undercut than some of the fresher stuff from some of the other companies. But to me, it's, again, because Tesla also gets benefits from that, they're on the same level. So whether, you take the money off or you don't, like, you're moving together, like a Lightning price move or a Mach-E price moves with a Model Y price. Like, if they both lose out, then they both lose out, and that's fine. But like, honestly, I think the credits actually would help all of the companies the most who don't get credits. Hyundai will be very happy about this because then, there's no benefit there to going for the Tesla. There's no benefit to going for the Ford or any of these others that have jumped through hoops and brought manufacturing to the States, by the way. There's no incentive to do that as much if, that was all tied into the tax credit. That means that all these companies are off the hook. They can build them wherever they want. Doesn't matter because there's no tax credit anymore. So, you could see a potential risk of losing some jobs there as a result of that. And some of these factories or planned factories, kind of them going back on that and being like, oh, actually, never mind. There's no tax credit to strive for anymore. So why worry? So I think that, for those companies, it'll be great. Because then they build them wherever they want and they don't have any kind of disadvantage to that anymore. So, we'll see again what he does, what he doesn't do. Like any politician, there's promises and some are kept and some are not. So we will see what happens. But yeah, and I'm happy to talk about this, in a neutral manner. If there's other people that want me to talk about this more, but I'll just leave it at that for now. And but yeah, I think that this change this week might not be the savior of the gas vehicle that a lot of enthusiasts think it is. And I kind of was talking about this in the weekly update in the comments with someone who made some comments similar to that. I don't think this is going to save the gas car industry or anything like that. But again, I will leave that topic for now unless others want to hear me talk about it. But Rafi says, woohoo, hey, Matt, hope everyone's doing well. Thanks for stopping by, Rafi. Linda says, day trading on the stock market is a good way to go broke. Dave Ramsey, invest in 4 different proven mutual funds. You make your money over time, slow and steady. Yeah, I mean, even like Warren Buffett has said, the stock market is a tool of transferring wealth from the impatient to the patient. So there's certainly some merit to that. Having said that, I do personally, I knew someone, unfortunately he's no longer with us, but knew someone who got very rich doing day trading, and unfortunately just got cancer and didn't die as a result of the stress or anything like you often see with day trading and being so stressful and stuff. But I knew someone who made actually made a ton of money day trading and did do it with a lot of success. It's something that, like anything, you have to learn it. You have to be smart with it. I mean, there's a lot of people that are very rich day traders. It is something you can do. It's very hard to do, but so is becoming an actor or, and a number of other things that might seem impossible, but there are people that are doing them. But it's definitely very hard, and it is kind of an easy, like, scammy kind of thing because everyone can hop in these days with Robinhood and stuff and just buy stuff or try and read up on threads on Reddit to find the new hot stock and gamble with it essentially. And yeah, it definitely is a great way to go broke. And it's tough. I've lost a little bit of money doing that. Again, I've kept it very limited because I knew the risk going in, and I have a background in finance. But it's definitely something it's tough. But it is possible, I think, because I've watched it again with my friend. But let me see. Squishy Chef, thank you so much for a super chat there. And your username always makes me laugh. But he says, I want to thank you and your state for making this a great week. There will be a local car show with new vehicles next week, and I can't wait to go. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know about any kind of car shows. Usually most of the car shows around here are pretty much done by this point in time. I know it is an unseasonably warm November, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see them try and pull off a car show, because now it actually seems like it is getting colder and rainy, and like today was pretty crappy and miserable from a weather standpoint. But I mean, I appreciate the super chat and hope you're doing well. And let me see here. Where were we? So Spy Harpy says, I saw your video on the new Camry. I saw 2 Camry XFC models following on the freeway at night. The inner pipes were black, outer ones were absolutely clean. Interesting. So it's not just the press car I had then. So it is actually something that is on all of them. So it's kind of funny. It's I guess they just are not using that second pipe. I don't remember that being the case on the prior gen Camry. So I'm not sure, because mechanically it's very similar. So I'm not sure what the deal is there, but it's interesting. And Jeffrey says, hey, Matt, just joined. I texted you recently. I wasn't sure about the styling of the grille on the new Camry. What do you think is a solid alternative to CRV RAV4 Rogue, maybe around 35 grand? Thanks. Yeah, thank you so much again for joining. As far as a solid alternative to those, I would say CX5 is my favorite in that segment. Now, you don't have quite as much room as CRV and RAV4 and Rogue. But CX5 to me is still the best handling one of the bunch. It's the best driving one. You have, a really punchy feeling engine, even though it's very similar horsepower to the others. It just feels a little more responsive in the Mazda. CX5 just always been my favorite. And they also are really good used values. I mean, you're talking 35, which buys you a very nice brand new one even. But they depreciate a little bit faster than like the RAV4 and stuff. So be wary of that if you are planning on flipping it, in a few years. But CX5s they're really good. And everyone I know, my sister has one, she really likes it. My neighbor has one, he really likes it. My other neighbor has one. I'm surrounded by CX5s, and everyone seems to be pretty happy with them. So that's always my go-to recommendation in that segment. As long as you don't need maximum space, I think CX5 is the best choice there. Hopefully that helps you. And let me know if you have any follow-up questions, though. And let me see here. Thank you so much, Cars, for being a member for 5 months now. I really appreciate that. He says, I was pleasantly surprised to see that Mazda is offering 0% financing on the CX-30, 70, 90, and the other ones. Yeah. And I think, you're going to start to see more good financing deals just as a result of the Fed dropping the interest rates again by a quarter point this week. And, but that's also just, 0% financing is pretty aggressive. I think it's, Mazda trying to make a push here towards the end of the year. And good time, better time to buy a car, I guess, than it was, in the first half of this year for sure. And good to see there's some good deals on those finally. And Austin, thank you so much for gifting a membership there. So, sorry to see that Danny didn't get it, but happy to see, I think another new name there for the love of noise, able to get it instead. And Luke, thank you so much for a super chat as well. He says, I wish Toyota would put the Hybrid Max and a manual in the Camry. One can dream. The Hybrid Max to me isn't too, I think that's a fairly realistic dream. The manual, I don't think, unfortunately, is. But, I could see Hybrid Max being, kind of what they do for a next-gen Camry TRD, or if they call it, GR Camry or something like that. I think it's either going to be hybrid if they do it. There's no guarantees. But if they were to do a faster Camry, I'd say either Hybrid Max or they do Prime, RAV4 Prime, and throw that in there for 300 horsepower. Just depends on how much they want to, advance that, if they want to make the leap to a plug-in hybrid GR, or if Hybrid Max is kind of more of what they would go for. I don't know. But yeah, that'd be cool. I know TFI says Toyota Crown kind of fits the bill, but it's ugly. To me, they're not ugly. I actually just saw another Crown this week. I think that the launch versions with the really bold two-tone were a lot to take in, but like now there's this new Night Edition for 2025 that blacks everything out, makes it a little bit more subdued and more normal, and I think those actually look really good as long as you're okay with the higher ride height, which I guess means you're not too worried about handling, if you go for one of those. But I liked Crown. It was a nice thing, just again they should have just made it bigger. That was the problem. The problem is the back seat is, I think, actually slightly less space than a Camry, so you're paying more for something that has less space than not only the Camry, but also the Lexus ES, which is very close in price as well. Again, less power, Crown's a tough sell. I think, if they lower the price a little bit or tried to do something else, I think, it would be better. But I think like Crown Signia is a better use of the Crown name here. And again, it's something different that you can't get from, a similarly priced Lexus or Toyota. So I think hopefully Crown Signia will do better for them. And I'm finally going to have a week with one here this next week coming up. I reviewed that back, I think it was April, and I think the review came out in June though, because there was a longer embargo on that one. But it's still, even from the time the embargo dropped, it's been, 5 months. Usually it's not that long of a delay from when I first review it to when I have a follow-up week with videos. So I'm excited to finally be able to play around with the Crown Signia a little bit more here this week. Let me see. And I see Vishal says, my buddy had a 2018 XSE V6 Camry, and it was the same case. Inner pipes were dark while the outer ones were clean. The outer ones are for looks. Okay. Well, then I guess it's always been there, and I just finally noticed it here for the first time with the 25. But so thank you for that. That's good to know that it's always been that way. That's great. Let me see. Where was I here? Looking back to the other member questions. So Austin says, I read Ford is extending the warranty 10 years on a bunch of EcoBoost motors. Pretty crazy. I hadn't heard that. I'll have to look into that. Thanks for the heads up. I guess that should hopefully give people more confidence in those motors long term. But that's interesting. Bruce says, what are some of your favorite and least favorite key fobs? You always have such good questions, Bruce. I think that one of my favorite key fobs is the Honda fob, the current new Honda fob, because it is tiny. It is really nice and small, but it does everything all the other keys do. And, especially when you're talking about mainstream brands, it doesn't have to feel expensive or special or anything. So it's tiny, it gets the job done. And yes, I know not everyone keeps keys in their pockets like I do, but if you are someone who, uses pockets and, puts your keys in your pocket, it's one of the best keys for that. Worst key fobs. There's a few. Like the Mazda, I feel sad because the Mazda key, it looks nice, but it went from being a nice little skinny key fob to now it's like double the width and there's no extra buttons on it. And it just seems like, again, they made it bigger just for the sake of making it seem more substantial or something. I'm thinking other fobs. There's some that are pretty big that are kind of annoying, but I can't think off the top of my head what the worst one is. I don't love the Ford key fob, honestly. It's kind of thick and, again, kind of dated at this point. I actually kind of missed the older Ford fobs that were, again, smaller. I don't know why we went backwards on fobs and every fob is thicker now. Maybe there's more cybersecurity and other internals there that need the extra space, but again, Honda can package it all in a tiny little thing, so I don't think that's even the reason. If I think of another one, I'll let you know, but I can't think of anything that is off the top of my head that's really bad. I feel like I was complaining about a fob not too long ago, though, but I can't remember which one it was. If it comes to me, I'll let you know. But I think the Honda one is definitely my favorite right now. TFI says, welcome to Jeffrey there, and says CX5 is a good alternative. Yep, right there with me, TFI. CX50 is available as a hybrid. Yeah. And that review actually is coming here on Tuesday morning for CX50 hybrid. That's when the embargo drops for that. And so I can't talk about how it drives yet, but you will see that here on Tuesday. And let me see. Jordan Car Guy says, I guess a Mopar guy covered for other Mopar guys. I'm not sure what that's a reference to there, but Linda says, friend just bought a new manual Honda Civic and loves it. That's awesome. Congrats to your friend, and happy to see another person supporting the manual cause there with a new manual Honda Civic. That's great. Rafi says, green Mach-E. I wish there were more fun colors out for cars. Everything is white, gray, or black. Yeah, definitely is that way for a lot of cars. There's a few companies that are getting, more colors in their palettes there, but it's good to see that Ford has made it a little interesting with a Mach-E, thankfully. And Luke says, if the other person isn't paying for your car, they don't get a vote. As far as whether you let people decide on your car, definitely do it for you, and that's it. Um, and Brian says, "What's your favorite whiskey?" I drink beer, IPA typically. 2025 is the last year for the Legacy Sedan and the XT4. Yeah, in 2020, I mean, it sounds like XT4, is going to be done here either by the very end of this year or early January, which is crazy. And yeah, Legacy is going away. I think middle of next year is when they make the last Legacy. But yeah, it's crazy. As far as favorite whiskey, um, I don't know. I mean, I like Bullet Bourbon is one of my favorite go-tos, especially whenever I put it in like an old fashioned or something. Um, and as far as like, I don't really have a go-to, honestly. Like, I mean, I always just say Bullet if I'm ordering an old fashioned. They ask me what kind of whiskey, but otherwise, I'm a pretty simple man to please as far as whiskey goes. I'm fine with Maker's Mark, Canadian Club. A lot of the cheap stuff is totally fine with me. I did really like. I have there's a bottle back there. It's a Bogart's whiskey. Humphrey Bogart, his estate, put out a whiskey, and I think they still do offer it. And I'm not sure. It was a limited time thing. They might not offer it anymore, but it was actually really good. Also, Four Roses is also back there, a bottle of that my friend gifted me a few years ago. That's also very good. Four Roses is usually a pretty solid choice in my mind. Yeah, I mean, I like beer as well. Unfortunately, I'm not an IPA fan. There's a very few IPAs that I like, but typically to me, IPAs are just too bitter and just not as refreshing to me as I'm again not a very I guess wine or beer connoisseur. So for me, like I'm fine with wheat beers and I'm fine with, a lot of the German beers, lagers, stuff like that is all, fine to me. Coronas in the summer is tough to beat. Vin Diesel got me started on those, but yeah, it's all kinds of good stuff out there. And Linda says, never buy a single stock by well-rated mutual funds. Yeah, that's definitely a good way to spread out your risk there. But if it's a company you really believe in and you're, and especially if it's like a blue chip, you're probably not going to get burned that much. Because yeah, like, I mean, Beth has, a small little portfolio, just, sentimental like companies she really likes, like Disney and stuff like that. And obviously you'll ride more of a roller coaster and you'll have more risk there. But, again, if we're talking long term, like all of her single stocks that she has bought have appreciated still very nicely over the course of, a decade or more, So, I mean, in general, you're still not going to get burned that bad if you are thinking long term on a lot of that stuff. But again, I'm not here to offer any kind of financial advice, even though I have a degree in financial planning, but it's very rusty. I haven't used it since I graduated, which was now over 12 years ago. So don't take anything I say to heart as far as financial stuff goes. Let me see. So Spike says, waiting for gas prices to drop. Yeah, we will wait and see how that goes. See if that happens. And let me see. Shane says, good evening, everyone. My first interesting car spot in a while, an Ineos Grenadier. I've been seeing a couple of the Grenadiers out there. There's actually a whole truckload of them getting delivered to some dealership or something. I saw a couple of weeks ago, and always fun to see one of those. You got to be a special kind of person to go for one of those, though. It's it's a sacrifice. It's basically the same price as a actual Defender that is far nicer and more polished. But for the people that want to be hardcore, kudos to them. And it's awesome that they're offering those. And Six Licks agrees about day trading is like sport betting. Totally agree. He says, I'm sure the technical and quantitative analysis is beyond the casual trader. Yeah, but even a lot of that stuff again goes out the window, because then you have just this hive mentality like we see with Tesla, where it's not following any kind of common sense. It isn't. It's not. Any disciplined financial person will tell you, like, Tesla stock has been overvalued for a long time. So, even when you're talking about day trading, and like I've done some of the technical analysis and some of the quantitative stuff and use, various, metrics and different markers and stuff. And, even some of those, I mean, they are certainly helpful. I'm fairly good at calling a stock, just not good enough to be consistent right now. When I do, I haven't dabbled in day trading in probably 6 months, but when I did, I usually end up like break even, where like I'll have one good one bad one or whatever, and I kind of just, I'm always like even Steven with that. And so that's why I kind of gave up, because I'm like, I can't just, spend time that I don't have, not losing, but not gaining either. So, I mean, I think in that regard, I'm not a terrible trader, but certainly not as good as I need to be. So maybe someday I'll get better at it if I can find the time. But there are a lot of good indicators out there to, help you to try and make the right call, or an intelligent call, I guess I should say. And let me see. I see Rafi saying about the exhaust pipes there as well. And let me see, try and get caught up here a little bit. Rafi also agrees about manual Camry will never happen. And Ford Enthusiast says, hey, Matt, watched all of your videos on the Camry, Accord, and Sonata. All great vehicles, and I test drove all of them and found the Camry the most fun to drive. The extra motor for the all-wheel drive is what makes it number one. I agree, and that's what I really loved in my week with the Camry. And I, basically said that, this past week. It's again, it comes down to what your priorities are and all that. But I think, if I had to spend my own money, probably would end up being, Camry as well. Especially, again, that all-wheel drive is just, I mean, you saw how fun it was, when I was driving it here in this week's video. But Goodstick says, a Tesla Plaid motorcycle would be literally mind-blowing. Yeah, and who knows? Maybe someday we'll see something like that. Wouldn't put it past him. Rafi says, the Crown would be nice. I just don't like a glass roof that doesn't open. That option on cars drives me crazy. Yeah, I can see how that could be annoying. It's just personal preference. It's really nice in the Mach-E. I kind of wish that one at least had a cover on it. That one doesn't even have a cover, but that giant piece of glass is, really cool. But yeah, I do prefer having it open up if, that's always a fun thing to have a moonroof. Let me see. The truck car guy says that BZ4X is uglier than the Crown. I don't know. I don't mind BZ4X either personally, but I can see that for sure. I think, Crown is definitely a little more conservative. Let me see. Vishal says, I really like the Honda Fob. Nice design and weight to it without feeling big. I don't mind the Fob in my Jetta, but nothing will beat the classic Volkswagen Switchblade key. Yeah, the Switchblade key is awesome in the Volkswagens. Those are so fun. And they're really like the first to do that, I think. And it was always, my mom had a Beetle and she had that Switchblade key as well. It was always fun to flip out. Luke says, I typically keep my keys on a chain on my belt loop, so I don't really care about fob size too much. Fair enough. I know a lot of people, they just use lanyards and stuff. Connor says, I wonder if the CX-50 hybrid warranty will be anything like the Toyota hybrid system warranty. I believe they're the same, because it is all the same components. I actually didn't check that during the course of my review. It's a very good question. I'll look into that before I do the video, because I haven't edited it yet. So I will maybe work that in if I get a definite answer on that. But I'm pretty sure it's going to be the same as the Toyota one. Rafi says, I'm excited for the CX-50 hybrid. A good choice on Mazda. I just don't know if I can live with that infotainment. I mean, the infotainment's been around for a while, so I guess that's something I can freely talk about. To me, it's fine. Now that you have the touch capability for CarPlay and Android Auto, that solved my main issue with that screen. And the more that I use the Mazda infotainment system, the more that I've kind of come around to the commenters who every time I bash the Mazda infotainment system are like, it's great once you learn it and get used to it and set your favorites and blah, blah, blah. And I think they're actually right. I mean, it's still, I think from a user standpoint, especially if you're a non-car person, I think that getting in a vehicle with a touchscreen is just an easier, natural, jump to make. It's very easy to do because you're familiar with touchscreens. You don't have to learn, how a knob works or which, other buttons are on the knob or whatever. So it's, I can see why touch is still preferable, but I do have to say in, the Mazdas that I've been in recently, again, since most of the stuff I do is CarPlay anyway, it's a non-issue. And then when I have to be in the Mazda infotainment system to turn on satellite radio or something like that, again, with the favorites, you literally hit that star button on the Mazda and all your favorite stuff comes up, whether it's your favorite addresses, favorite phone numbers, or favorite, radio stations or whatever. And truly, I mean, once you do have all those set, it's literally you press the favorites button and you have all your favorites right there. You spin, 1, 2, 3 clicks or however many clicks to those radio stations, whatever. It is actually very, very good. And so yeah, for that reason, I actually don't think that it's a deal breaker. I think that the most aggravating one, if we are bashing controllers, is still the Acura one, which they're slowly getting rid of as well. But that is just so imprecise as far as using it with CarPlay. That's the biggest problem with that one. That one is also actually pretty good to use in Acura's own infotainment system, but whenever you try and have that translate over into CarPlay, it's just not a good experience. But yeah, the Mazda one's actually not bad. So again, I know it's hard for other people to have a longer experience with that to try it for themselves, but personally, I think it's actually pretty good. And Mazda did a lot of research on making things not too buried in the infotainment system. So it's always only a couple of spins of the wheel to get to everything you want. And I did find myself actually navigating it quicker than some sub menus in other touchscreens from competitors that are actually more annoying. So yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's also a personal preference thing, but for me personally, it's actually not too bad anymore. Especially with some of these companies having these really slow or convoluted touchscreens, and some of them not being the best. I think Mazda is actually pretty good. Although one thing I can say, again, this is infotainment, so I can say this about the CX-50 hybrid. That car in particular, it was really slow to bring up radio stations. I don't know why. That's nothing I've ever dealt with in any other Mazda infotainment system, so I have no clue why that CX-50 hybrid was just so slow with bringing up radio stations. So, definitely if you're considering one, try it out at the dealer, make sure that it actually works well and all that. But typically they're all, pretty good in my opinion. But anyway, long answer, apologize. Truck and Car Guy says, much as modern Wranglers are kind of crap, I will admit that the Jeep fob looking like a spare gas can is at least interesting. That is a very cool one for sure. I do like that. And it also does have the switchblade thing too, which is cool. So yeah, I like the Wrangler fobs there. And I think it's on all Jeeps, right? It's a nice one. And B. Mitchell says, the fob for my 19 Mustang is annoying just because if you put a key ring on it, it's bulky and ungainly. I actually prefer the real key on my 13 F-150. Totally understand. Yeah, makes sense. And B. Mitchell says, a round of Black Velvet for Matt. I don't know if I've actually ever had Black Velvet, but I'd certainly be up for for a round of that. Yeah. I see other people weighing in here. B. Mitchell says, BV, the blue color Crown Royal. Nice. I didn't know that about Black Velvet. That's cool. I'll have to try some someday. Zachary says, old fashioned with bullet is my evening sipper tonight. Very nice. Congrats on that, Zachary. And kudos to you for mixing your own old fashions. I'm far too lazy to ever make them myself typically. I even have most of the ingredients, but every time I've ever attempted it, it's never turned out very well anyway. And it's something I just have not invested the time to improve my skills at. So I usually just take the lazy approach and just have, 1 or 2 fingers of it neat, and that's it. Let me see. Good Stick says, I have a hypothetical situation for you. If self-driving cars are indeed safe and are widely available for daily transportation, would you sell your Mach-E and buy back your Mustang? So if I think I enjoy driving myself, and I mean, I don't know how Beth would feel about this honestly, but for me, I like having that control. And even if it were safe, I just enjoy doing it myself. It's not even like a trust thing. It's just like I enjoy the act of driving. Even whenever it's boring, I enjoy it. I mean, I just did a slog down to West Virginia and back yesterday. And it wasn't, particularly enjoyable as far as I was just cruising on the highway. But even that, just cruising on the highway, I enjoy, piloting a vehicle. So no, for me, I would even, if it was the most boring vehicle in the world, I'd rather have the most boring vehicle in the world to drive versus a self-driving car personally. Yeah, we will see. I think there's a lot of other people though too, even if they're not enthusiasts. I think there are a lot of people that even if it's not a trust thing, there are, I think, other people that just truly enjoy driving. They wouldn't call themselves enthusiasts, but they just, like kind of that feeling of freedom and the ability to go wherever you turn the wheel and go wherever you feel like going. So I think there's something there, I think, that will be a lasting thing for a lot of people. And W. Mitchell says, then again, I cracked my last case of Yingling for the season tonight. That's awesome. Well, enjoy the Yingling. That's always a solid choice, too. Austin says, Russian River Pliny is the elder. I'm butchering this. Russia River Pliny the Elder is the best IPA I've ever had. Interesting. I've never heard of that one. That's cool. I'll have to try it out maybe sometime. There's sometimes some good IPAs here for the holidays and stuff that are kind of fun. But yeah, it's usually pretty limited for me. Jordan says, is Carvana still a thing? Haven't seen any of the delivery trucks or ads here in Milton, Florida lately. Yeah, they've had a huge turnaround story. That's another stock that's been like very hot and went from really being on the ropes to now doing pretty well. Carvana, at least around here, seems to be pretty good. All of their glass towers with the cars, the big vending machines or whatever, those are still functional and stocked full of cars. I just drove past them yesterday. There's one south of Pittsburgh here that actually there's a couple in Pittsburgh, but there's one in like the Washington, PA area for anyone who's familiar, that was fully stocked yesterday when I drove by. So I think it is still a thing. And TFI says one of the local breweries in Vancouver dropped a 9.2% IPA Tallboy 16 ounce, and it was definitely an acquired taste. I'll take an easy lager over an overly hoppy IPA. Yeah, that's the thing to me. A lot of them are just way too hoppy, and maybe that's just because I'm not enough of a beer expert to enjoy that. But and I mean, again, this is someone who drinks whiskey straight up, neat, like no ice, no water, nothing. I just drink it straight out of the bottles. Sometimes it's, but that's an IPA is a little too much. I'd rather just have some straight whiskey if I want to have a shock to the system there. But let me see. Kyle, thanks you so much for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate that. And let me see. Still looks like no luck there for Danny, unfortunately. I don't know what we got to do to get Danny a membership here, but Danny should just open a Patreon. I'll just give you $5, Danny, to get yourself a membership there. But let me see. Other questions. Thank you again, though, Kyle, always for every week gifting memberships. It really means a lot. And let me see. Where were we? 2 tracks as I'm sailing with the captain tonight. Very nice. Always a good choice, too. Good Success. Toyota didn't have key fobs for a long time. They all had twist keys until just a few years ago. Yeah, and you're right. The key itself had the little buttons there on it, for a little bit there. But yeah, the fobs, Toyota's fobs are good. I like how they have their own little like custom logos in them, for some of the GR products and stuff. Yeah, Linda says she loves the Mustang symbol on her key fob. Folks see it and say, "Tell me about your Mustang." Nice, that's cool. Yeah, they do a pretty good job on the Mustang ones. Again, I prefer actually the earlier S550 Mustang fobs. The newer ones went to the chunkier key that I didn't like as much. And Good Six says BMW first generation iDrive makes the accurate infotainment system look intuitive. That's true. Yeah, a lot of those early infotainment systems are horrible, like bad. Yeah, it's just like tear it out, throw it in the trash, and put in, some kind of CarPlay head unit from Best Buy or something. It's definitely anything's going to be an improvement over that. Shred Car Guy says, being that I drive several different kinds of cars at work, the Mazda infotainment does get easier once you get used to it. BMWs and Audis suck though. Yeah, some of the knobs in the older BMWs and Audis were also, not the best. The newer stuff, though, they have where you have an option of knob or not, or, the newest stuff, again, being all touch. Some of the newest all touch isn't great with BMWs. I actually like Audi's system. I don't have too much of a complaint with that currently. It's been fine. We'll see what this brand new system that they have coming, is like. But their current one I actually find very familiar and very easy to work personally. But again, that's another subjective thing. Comes down to how it works for you. Linda says, I don't listen to radio and play CDs instead. Yes, I'm that old. CDs are great. CDs are still better audio quality than probably anything unless you're streaming Tidal or you're running like an actual USB drive, with super high, like lossless stuff. I don't think you can beat CD. I don't even know if CarPlay is actually a higher source. I don't have the info on that. Maybe someone knows better than I do on that. But CDs, yeah, I see TFI agrees. Yeah, the best audio fidelity. Yeah, it is great. It is also, you would have thought, I mean, I guess maybe it's just again aging out and people not caring that much, but you would have thought that like the high-end manufacturers would have retained CDs for complementing their stereo systems in the best way possible. But yeah, I don't know. Danny says, I love it. Superstill is a CD player. Yeah, Superstill offers a CD player as a dealer installed option. Goes straight into the center armrest cubby there, and it's great. It's really, really cool. They still offer that. Jordan says, if you don't have your iPhone on, can you connect an Apple Watch to a car's infotainment system? No, I don't believe you can. I mean, Apple Watch has Bluetooth, so it could potentially. I've never tried, and I've actually never heard of anyone doing that. So maybe you can't do it, because I feel like surely I would have come across hearing about that at the very least. So yeah, I don't know. That's a very good question. Yeah, I would guess no, but technically it should be possible. Maybe someone else also has a better answer than what I can give. That is, yeah, wow. I had never crossed up my mind that may or may not work. I don't know. Great question, Jordan. I wish I had a better answer for you. And TFI says my Mark 7 Golfs have the CD player in the glove box. It's also got an SD slot, so I can play my old mixtapes, and everything else goes on the SD card. Nice. That's fun. Yeah, that's great. And Douglas says, hey, Matt, first live stream, but love the videos. Excited for the holidays. Absolutely. Holidays are always fun, especially, with our daughter. The magic of the holidays is, a lot more vibrant, and seeing their reactions, all that is really fun. So it's going to be a fun holiday season here, just, for that reason alone. But thanks so much for stopping by, Douglas, and hope you enjoyed the live here. Let me see. Linda says, my dad and I have always loved driving, plus the act of driving keeps me awake and focused. Absolutely. There's that component as well. And thanks for stopping by, a Decepticon Stinger there. Good Stick says, I haven't been seeing any Subaru Ascents on the road. Did demand slip, or is it not competitive? I don't know. Maybe it's just where you are. I don't know. I see a ton of Ascents around here. They are very popular still. Now, there is, the expectation that a new one should be coming fairly soon. I think technically from a stale product standpoint, it should be the next one up. Although it seems like we've been seeing the new Outback Spied, and I don't think we've seen new Ascent Spied. So maybe they are doing a longer product cycle for that. Because I think Ascent should be the next one, just again based on age. But maybe we'll be waiting a little longer. But I think a lot of people, Ascent, I think it's still fairly competitive just because it's cheap, so it kind of undercuts some of the others. But yes, as far as the tech, the space, it is just, it's a little more stale and just a little less competitive, especially these days with the Grand Highlanders in the world, and new Pilot. I mean, there's a lot of, basically everything is fresh and impressive and new, and even some of the older stuff is still more impressive, like Palisade, Telluride, all that. So I think it's a combination of the two. Thanks everyone else for stopping by here and saying hello. Spike says, I got a membership without watching the live. Well, thanks for stopping by, Spike. And yeah, it seems like YouTube just goes randomly through a list of people that just say they want a membership, and it has makes no difference whether you're in the lives or what, I don't think there's any kind of thing that sways who gets them, honestly. It's interesting. And a Trend Car Guy, saying check your settings. Maybe it's not accepting memberships. That's true. That's maybe a possibility as well. So definitely check that if you can there, Danny. William says, new Lexus IS350 all-wheel drive or new Integra Type S. Obviously very different cars, with one being all-wheel drive and a rear-wheel drive based kind of thing versus one being solely front-wheel drive. And also it comes down to how high performing you want it. Obviously, yes, they're both similar horsepower, but Type S is really an aggressively set up car. You got 265 wide tires in the front. It's manual only. It's very, very aggressive. I mean, it's fun and it's, I mean, a great daily driver still, but it's a lot more intense than a regular IS 350, which is a luxury sedan with, just a very different vibe to it. So it comes down to how much handling you want, I think, is honestly the bottom line. And also, again, how strongly you feel about manual versus automatic, since Lexus is auto only and Integra is manual only there for Type S. So yeah, comes down to your preferences. I'd say personally, if it were me, I'd rather have the Integra Type S, but that's just because I enjoy that and I live in an area where we have lots of tight corners. So to me, Type S would be more fun, and it still gives you great daily driving comfort and all that as well. And Vishal says, any cars you've been in this year that had a CD player in it? The 16 Passat is our last car that has a CD player in it. Yeah, there was one that I mentioned, I feel like it was a few months ago. I can't remember what it was, but there was something with a CD player not too long ago. And yeah, the Subarus all offer them. I can't remember what it was. There was something. And I remember being like, wow, this is really respectable. It still has a CD player, but I'd have to go through a list and see, because I don't remember off the top of my head. Yeah, I'll have to think about it. Maybe, well, I think, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe no. Yeah, I can't think of anything, honestly. Sorry, I tried. There's definitely got to be something. I think there's something in the past year. I just can't remember exactly what. But you see here. Michelle also says, of the 3 German luxury brands, I feel like Audi has the best infotainments. It's intuitive and not overwhelming to use like Mercedes or BMW. I agree. Between the 3, Audi is my favorite for sure. Yeah, I honestly, yeah, I think the Audi system has been pretty reliable, pretty good, and I always seem to really like it, honestly. And Jordan says, is the remote key fob reversing feature only limited to one car brand? No, there's a bunch of different brands that have that. Honda or Hyundai is one of the main ones. But and all the Hyundai brands all do that. But there are a few others. I just can't. Man, I'm like blanking on all these all these kinds of questions. There is, who else has the buttons on the fob? There's a few other luxury brands, I'd say, but I can't remember which ones have it. I think the Ram has it. I think that might be one. I remember having buttons potentially. There's got to be a few others too, though. And maybe someone else can help me out there with that. But let me see. Spike says, Bluetooth audio sounds better than CarPlay in my SI. That's strange. I feel like that shouldn't be the case, but I mean, yeah. I mean, obviously, if it it is what it is, if that's the way it plays through your SI. But I feel like Bluetooth is usually a lower quality stream, if I remember correctly. Jabbar says, I have a 2018 Elantra GT Sport with a DCT a few weeks ago. I got one a few weeks ago. Nice. And I'm happy to say that your review helped me immensely in my decision. Thank you for that comment. That's why I do this, and do these reviews. So thank you so much. I'm so happy that helped you, and I hope you're enjoying it so far. And yeah, that's awesome. So, and yeah, that was a great little car. That one, I don't know if that video got a whole lot of views, but it was, I mean, kind of a car that flew under the radar. And I don't know why, because it's a really good little car, and happy you're enjoying yours. And yeah. So happy to hear that helped you. Rafi says, can confirm Integra Type S is the best daily 4 months in with 6,000 miles. Yeah, that's very true. And happy you're still enjoying yours, Rafi. Good Six says, do you think with a rideshare model would work? Do you think a rideshare model would work with cars rather than buying a car you can rent out like a Lime bike? This way it would be cheaper to drive cars and also a good way to try out new cars. This is something a lot of companies have tried. There's a bunch of these types of companies. And it just seems like it has never worked, even though it should be something that would be more popular than it is. But like, I think Volvo still is trying to do it. Porsche, I actually think does do a subscription thing. And there's a few others. There's also things like Turo and stuff like that. But yeah, there are some of those ride sharing kind of things as well. Zipcar is another one where you can rent a car for a very short, a couple of hours or whatever, or things like that. So there are a few of those out there. It's just that it's never really taken off for whatever reason. At least not in Pittsburgh. Maybe other cities have more success with those types of things. But yeah, you would think that would make more sense. And I think you'll see more of that, potentially in the future with, the robo taxis or whatever. I think some of that, cyber cab, I guess is what it's now called. People maybe wanting to rent those not just for like one Uber ride, but for an afternoon of activities or whatever, and just kind of having slightly longer term, a day or so or something like that. And I think sure there will be various options available for those types of things in the future, again assuming all the other hurdles get figured out as far as truly driverless stuff, which I'm still skeptical about, but we'll see. And Danny's asking about where to find the accept gifts in the YouTube settings. I'm not sure where it's at, honestly. Hopefully someone else can maybe give some input on that, because I don't have it. I don't even think I have that setting personally for me, but I know it's out there for others who maybe don't have a channel or whatever. So it should be in there somewhere. And I'm sure if you Google too how to turn that on, there should be a little guide to show you how to do that too. Douglas says, have you seen the new Maserati? I've seen two in person. What a beauty. I haven't seen any in person yet. No, but I've been, seeing them online, obviously. And they do seem really beautiful. I hope it does well for them, because Maserati needs every sale they can get these days. So I hope it does well for them. TFI says TLX Type S is something to keep an eye on the used market. 1 to 2 year olds are a pretty good value considering the performance. Yeah, I think I've seen they have kind of depreciated a little bit, and I love TLX Type S. So absolutely, especially these new 24s or 25s, like the one I just reviewed this year, because then they fixed the throttle response issue, which was kind of one of the things that wasn't quite a deal breaker, but really probably would annoy me on a daily basis with the pre-refreshed TLX Type S, but with this revised setup for 25, it's a lot better. So especially those, in a year or two, if you can scoop one of those things up for a nice discount, yeah, that is one of the cars I kind of keep tabs on as far as like if I needed a 4-door dad car that's fun. TLX Type S is definitely on that list, to keep an eye on. Now, would it ever get cheap enough to undercut a GR Corolla, which is my one true love? We'll see. But yeah, they're really great cars, TLX Type S. And Shane, thank you so much for giving a membership there. I was happy to see Michelangelo there able to get it, but sorry, that one didn't go to Danny either. But Danny says he has the gifting thing on. So I guess just have to wait for the YouTube algorithm to give you the lucky golden ticket there, Danny. But thank you so much, Shane, for trying there. And let me see. Rafi says, Maserati's exhaust will forever have a soft spot in my heart. A family friend has one and was surprised when I first heard it. Yeah, it's one of the best sounding V8s ever, I think, in my opinion. That Maserati V8 so good. And every time, that is one of those really distinctive ones too, where it could be 3 miles away. If I hear just 1 second of that exhaust, I know exactly what it is. It's such a good sound. And I was actually thinking today, driving this LC 500 press car this week, I was driving it and I was like, this actually sounds, it's not quite as good as Maserati's naturally aspirated V8, but it's a very similar kind of tone and character, just a little quieter. But it's really good. And it's, if you again want Lexus reliability and all that, the Lexus V8 isn't a bad compromise, especially the way it's tuned in the LC, for those that might be a little scared of a used Maserati. Again, if you obviously Lexus LS or LC, doesn't depreciate very fast, but that's another car, a dream car for me. Wait till you guys see this one that I have this week. I'll be doing a week with video pretty shortly. That one's going to kind of jump the line a little bit because I want to get that out before the end of the year. I think that's coming in December, but man, it's copper crest with the like cream and dark blue interior. It's one of the bespoke build ones. And every single person loves that car. It looks so good. It's, dare I say, the prettiest press car I've ever had. Potentially one of the most beautiful cars I've reviewed for sure. Especially, I love the LC. I think that design has aged so well. It's been out since what, 2018, 2017. and it still could be a brand new 2025 design, in my opinion. Like, it looks so freaking good, and it sounds so good, and it drives so good. That's up there with the GR Corolla cars that get me excited just thinking about them. Man, I wish I could afford an LC500 convertible someday. That would really be the ultimate, like, buy and keep, like, car, because I've always wanted a convertible, and it'd be, a 4-seater, so I could potentially bring our daughter along too, and have the whole family enjoy it. And yeah, that'd be fun. But Rafi, thank you so much for the super chat. He says the LC500 will be a collector car, one of the future. I wish I could afford one. Super awesome car. Happy you agree, Rafi. Yeah, absolutely. They are going to be collectors, I think. I think a lot of people kind of slept on them in the first few years because they weren't as fast as, a 911 or whatever. And it's like, yeah, who cares these days? Again, if you want to beat people at red lights, go buy a Model 3 Performance and call it a day for 45 grand or whatever. Like, LC500 is just, I don't know, maybe I've just fully drank the Kool-Aid on that car, but it's just magical. It's pure driving bliss, in my opinion. And again, it's just enough power to have fun, but you can enjoy the entire power band without being a menace to society. And it's just, oh man, I love that thing so much. Anyway, again, be prepared for me just being extremely repetitive for 10 minutes in an LC500 in December when that video comes out. But anyway, thank you again, Rafi, for the super chat there. And let me see. Find my spot here. Guardian says Lexus IS has a CD player, I believe. I think you're right. Yeah, IS does have one. That is one of the ones for sure. And Michelle's asking, reviewing a Kia K4 anytime soon. Started seeing some in my area, and it really stands out on the road. I've seen a few of them pop up as well. I don't know when I'll get to review one. So here's the thing about K4. So they've been at dealers since August. Kia is doing the drive program in December. And I'm not going on it because it's 3 months after they are already at dealers. That is not a good combo for a good video performance. Every single person with a smartphone in their pocket can go to a Kia dealer and do a car review and beat me to the punch. So, like, I'm not going to fly halfway across the country for a review of a car. And I mean, I could go to a dealer and review one, but I also, like, to me, it's a car that should do fairly well, if it's delivered to my doorstep and it's an easy one to do as a press vehicle. But to go to the work, I don't have any Kia dealerships that I know. I'm sure I could just message one and they'd probably let me take one, especially a K4. It's not like it's a big ask, but I'm so backlogged on reviews that I'm not desperate to run out and review anything right now. And I don't think it'll do huge numbers for me on the channel. Kias always do terrible on my channel, even if they are really good vehicles that actually have hype, or I really like them or enjoy them, or they're really well priced, or take your pick. It seems like it does not matter. The Kia they could have the first flying car and no one would watch it on this channel because it's a Kia and no one buys any of the Kia reviews here on this channel. So, I mean, it's fine. Again, I'm happy to just post stuff people want to watch, but I've kind of learned to kind of take a back seat to Kia reviews. As much as I love the brand and I think they're very impressive, the general viewing public on this channel just does not show up for Kia videos. So for that reason, I'm not rushing to review the K4. I'm definitely not going on the drive program. And I'm sure I'll probably get one as a press vehicle sometime next year, maybe even early-ish next year, winter or spring. So I'd say maybe keep an eye out early spring for a review on one potentially. But yeah, I'm in no hurry to review it. But I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be great. I think it looks, like you said, it looks great. It's a really good value, it seems. And I think the styling is pretty good. And so, yeah, I like it. I think it should be, a really solid home run, hopefully, for Kia. Just won't be a home run for me on this channel, I don't think. But let me see. Truck and Car Guy says, not going to lie, those Lime scooters can be quite fun. Yeah, they are very fun. I actually had a fun night many years back at the Indianapolis 500 Indianapolis. We were there, me and a bunch of other YouTubers, and we were zipping around on Lime scooters late at night, having a ton of fun. And Rafi also agrees they're fun, but it can confirm that it hurts when you fall. I'm sure. Thankfully, I did not excuse me, whenever I had one. But Jordan says if companies are doing away with dealers, will also include places like CarMax. Places like CarMax will always exist because used cars will always be a thing. Or I guess not always, but until we get to a fully driverless society where no one owns a car, which is, I mean, a long time away. Because even then, you'll have people that buy these classic cars that can be driven, on the same tracks and things like that we see, as far as enthusiast stuff and all that these days. But so I think stuff like CarMax will stick around for a while still, a long, long while. And I see more discussion about the Lime bikes there. They're nice, but it would be cool if they could make a tiny four-wheeler to zip around town, especially with group rides. Yeah, that'd be nice. Jabbar says, what brand do you think had the most tragic fall from grace? I don't know, probably Mitsubishi. I think they're the safe one to say. I see other people saying Lancia, Mitsubishi. I think Mitsubishi for me, just because, I mean, I think the Outlander plug-in hybrid is actually very good. I really love that vehicle, and it's really overlooked, sadly. But aside from that, all the other products are just like, very mediocre at best. They just haven't kept up with the competition. But Mitsubishi, I mean, they are a company with vast resources still. They're a gigantic, especially, I mean, if you look at not just Mitsubishi automobiles, but like Mitsubishi air conditioners and everything else that they build all around the world. They're a gigantic company. So you'd think they had enough money to continue to invest, and they do in other parts of the world, but they don't here. And it's a shame because, you had awesome stuff like the Montero. You had awesome stuff like the 3000 GT with, VR4. It had four-wheel steering, had, this twin turbo thing. It was right up there with the Nissan 300ZX and, all these other awesome vehicles. And then, the Eclipse was massively popular. I mean, every cool person had an Eclipse. I think in the 90s, it was like, they were a really cool brand. And then you had the Evo and that whole thing in the early 2000s. And I mean, all through the mid 2000s there into the 2010s, even, it was really top notch. And then everything just went out the window. And again, I guess the more off-road rugged body on frame fad kind of didn't kick in until, later in the 2010s here. But why did they ever get rid of any of their body on frame stuff here? All that stuff I think would do very well. And it's just a shame that they haven't thrived here in the States when I think they should have. I think they have the money to do it. I think they have the talent to do it. I mean, there's still some enthusiasts working at Mitsubishi because, man, the way they set up that all-wheel drive and the torque vectoring yaw system and the Outlander plug-in hybrid, it's my favorite handling of these plug-in hybrid SUVs, which maybe isn't saying much to most people. But I mean, it handles way better than RAV4 Prime. It handles way better than any of the other plug-in hybrid SUVs. It's really fun. I mean, if you haven't watched it and you don't mind killing a few minutes, go watch my Outlander plug-in hybrid review. It's like when I take that thing on the tight back roads in my area here, I mean, I'm like, whoa, this thing is actually fun. This is really awesome. And honestly, like, it impressed me enough that if we were looking for a plug-in hybrid crossover here, as a family vehicle, I would actually strongly consider the Outlander plug-in hybrid, especially because there's plentiful stock. It's easy to get at a good price compared to RAV4 Primes and everything else. I'd probably go with the Outlander if I were in the plug-in hybrid SUV segment. And so, yeah, it's just sad because, again, I know there is still talent there at Mitsubishi, but then it's not getting approved for other products like it needs to. And it's just, they were so impressive for so long, especially for those of us that remember, the glory of the 90s and even, late 80s and into, again, 2000s. And TFI says, I love the sound of Volvo V8s. They were developed by Yamaha. Yeah, anything Yamaha touches is always glorious. And it says, Yamaha also did the V8 and the Taurus show. Yep, they did some really, really good stuff. It's like, it's funny. So I was actually just talking with some Cosworth people, really cool. Whenever I was on the Cadillac Blackwing event, which you'll be seeing a review of that here, not this week, but the following week. But Cosworth was there because they actually, work on the recorder, data recorder stuff, and the performance data recorder is what Cadillac calls it in the Cadillacs. And there's some improvements there to that here for 25 now that it has that big screen for the Blackwings and the regular Vs. And so, but I was having lunch with two people from Cosworth, and I was like, "You guys make the most amazing engines." And they were on the like software side of it, but I'm like, "Are you guys a big company? Like, do you have overlap? Do you get to like peek your head in and like listen to a glorious Cosworth V12, on the random day?" And they're like, "Yeah, it's really fun because they are a pretty small company. So even though if they're not working on that stuff, they can still, talk to other coworkers that are working on that stuff or whatever." And then I was so happy I was able to finally compliment them because I've never, come across any Cosworth employees in the past. I was like, "Holy crap, you guys make amazing engines." And yeah, that was kind of fun to chat with them a little bit. But yeah, them and Yamaha definitely take the crowns for the best sounding engines, best, just engines in general. Yamaha, they also did the V10 for Lexus, just to get every single thing. I don't know why Yamaha doesn't actually go and build cars, because man, I feel like they got some very impressive engineers that can work out some really cool stuff. But let me see. Vishal says LC500 is my all-time dream car. I just drool every time I see a convertible, especially. Same here. Yep. And let me see. Also, Rafi says pure luxury cruiser with great performance. So much love for that car. I hope Lexus stays fun. I agree. I hope they do too. And I'm really happy that LC500 has stuck around as long as it has too. I think that car will hopefully have as long of a life as possible, because that is Koji Sato's baby. And now that he's running the whole show for, Toyota group there, I'm hoping that, he's got the power. Hopefully he keeps that car around as long as possible, because man, yeah, it is. And I'm so happy they've kept that V8 around for not only that, but also the IS500. We had thought that V8 was going to go away here pretty soon, and we have seen it phase out of basically everything else within Lexus, but I'm happy that they didn't draw a firm line in the sand and were able to kind of leave it in for some of these low volume products. And because that Lexus V8 is so good. So good. Anyway, so see, Danny's still upset about the membership gifting there. I apologize, Danny. I wish. Definitely feel free to ask questions though, Danny. If I'm more than happy to answer, especially since we've kind of caught up with member questions fairly well here tonight, doing a pretty good job, I think, staying on top of them here. But let me see. Trunk Car Guy says my wagon broke down, so I'm relying on my Lancer to get to and from. Sorry to hear about the bad luck there with the Magnum, but yeah, Lancer, it's a fun little car, so hopefully you're enjoying that still nonetheless. And TFI says, watch JR Go reviewed the Versa and Mirage. The Topher reviewed the Versa. Cheap boxes are trading up as they're getting killed off. Absolutely. Yeah, the sales of those are all really red hot right now, which is great. So yeah, I've been asking Nissan for a Versa. We will see if they put another one in the press fleet or not. Mirage is one that, again, I could review. We'll see. Again, I'm just so backed up on other videos. Again, I'm now scheduling out to February already, so it's I got a lot of stuff just trying to stay up with. But if I do kind of get any kind of lull or any kind of gaps in my schedule there, that is definitely something I want to do. In addition to all the other stuff I want to do, like I still want to do the junkyard walks and do a live stream of me just walking through a junkyard live. And I still want to try that here soon. Just again, been too busy here. I was hoping November would be kind of slow, but it's like I'm looking at my workload for every week this month, and it's not going to really be too much easier. So we'll see. Hopefully, yeah, we'll see. Maybe in December. But yeah, I really want to do that, and that is something, again, doesn't take a ton of time. So I'm hoping I can do that soon. But Jabbar says Chrysler too. Honestly, they used to have so many interesting options. I agree. Chrysler's another one that's sad to see it drop. Even Dodge really being a shadow of their former self here. They had some really cool stuff too, some bold sedans they don't offer anymore, just a bunch of stuff. So yeah. Let me see. And Mr. 504, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, why does Toyota never had a dually Tundra? That's a good question. I'm not sure why, because it seems like Toyota wanted to compete, in all the ways. I'd say maybe the reason why is the reason why they also don't have a heavy duty truck, because I feel like that's a smaller market than the regular full size truck market. So, if they don't achieve the volumes they're hoping for there, then there's less incentive to make that leap for the heavy duty stuff and dualies and things like that. But yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, they have the money. I guess they could if they wanted to. I'm guessing the internal research shows that maybe people wouldn't go for that to a large enough extent to make it worth the trouble of going out and making that. But I don't know. It's a really good question. I've never heard anyone request a dually Tundra before. So that's cool that you're thinking about that. It's something I've never even crossed my mind. But that's I agree. Makes sense. Why not offer it and see how it goes? And thank you again for the super chat. And let me see here. Jamar also says, I work at a repair shop and I'm always appalled by the crappiness of Subies. And that new infotainment system is awful. It is, it's not good. I don't really enjoy it. And Subarus, same thing around here. I don't know if it's like, if Subaru has a unique like scent on the interior fabrics or something that like brainwashes people into loving Subarus or what, but it's like, it doesn't matter that Subarus aren't competitive in most of these standard metrics. Like people just do not care. Around here, it's like, oh, if you ever see snow, like you need a Subaru. Like they've done such a good job, drilling that in their marketing for the past couple of decades that it's, in the Northeast, if you need all-wheel drive, if you feel like you need all-wheel drive because of, just the stuff that's been put out there about all-wheel drive, it's like, well, you gotta have a Subaru around here. It's the way it goes. It's kind of amazing because every single time someone's like, oh yeah, I got a Subaru, I'm like, did you look at the competition? Like, why? I mean, there's a few cases where I could see, okay, if you need max ground clearance, Subaru usually beats the others on that. And there are a few other things. If you really just want all-wheel drive at an affordable price point, Impreza is really good. A regular Impreza all-wheel drive is super cheap for what you get, as far as all-wheel drive goes. So there are still some deals to be had there, and there are some logical reasons to buy some of them. And also, if you want just a bare bones WRX, I think that's still a solid buy. Where else are you going to get 270 horsepower and a manual and all-wheel drive for 32 grand? So there are some very good things where I do stand by some Subaru purchases, but then, the people that go out and buy all the Crosstreks, all the Outbacks, even again, Ascent, things like that. It's like, unless you're getting a really good discount on this, competitors are better in most cases. And, it's just, it's the Subaru mystery, in my opinion. I see TFI also says Legacy Wilderness could have been a hit. They gave the WRX all the Fisher Price cladding. That's true. I see Matthew also says, my spouse has an Outlander right now as a rental for 2 weeks, and it's a solid little SUV. I hope they hold up over time when the CVT isn't a problem. It has decent power and a nice interior too. Yeah, I've actually never experienced the regular Outlander, and the plug-in hybrid has like their kind of direct drive kind of transmission, so it's not the actual CVT you get in the regular ones. So I don't have any experience with that CVT, but it's, I think, the same one as the Nissan one, so should have pretty good programming. Some people love to hate on Nissan CVTs. I think the newer ones are going to be a little bit more reliable here, but time will tell, I guess. But yeah, Outlander, I think, is a really solid little vehicle. Just the way it's packaged, everything else about it, yeah, this is actually pretty good. TFI says Mitsubishi built airplanes, but their wheels ain't fly. They should hit up Exhibit to pimp their rides. Good one. I think 2 would be proud. I don't think 2's in here tonight, but you got the rhymes there. Yeah, it's a shame that Mitsubishi is not as fly as they used to be. Good Stick says, "Do you have any experience with motorcycles? If so, why do you think they haven't caught on in the U.S. like the rest of the world? Within city limits, traffic can be greatly reduced." That's true. I think that there's some cultural stuff. I think also just um, the makeup of the roads in America are different. I personally do not have any experience with motorcycles. I've ridden I rode one around my friend's yard before. It was an old like 70s BMW bike that was really heavy, so very unwieldy in my opinion at least. So there's that, and then yeah, I think that's actually the only time I've ever attempted to ride any kind of motorcycle. Um, and then as far as why they haven't caught on, I think other parts of the world are just different. As far as one, the amount of people that have the disposable cash for a nicer vehicle. Obviously, motorcycles are a lot cheaper, and you see, like all the Top Gear specials of them going to Vietnam and all these other places where that is very more a common thing. There's just those types of differences. Also, the U.S. is all about I guess excess in a lot of ways. I mean, I think they said like something like 90% of all vehicles are driven with one person. Like 90% of the time are driven like with just a driver, and don't have any passengers. 90% of the time, again, don't quote me on the exact percentages or what the context of that is, but the bottom line is there's a lot of wasted space in all of these cars, especially it's especially unforgivable whenever it's these gigantic vehicles that are always driving around completely empty. And Americans just don't buy what they need. Americans buy what they want. um, and there's less of a pragmatic approach. Like elsewhere in the world, we see a pragmatic approach, and this is what works as far as why lower range EVs work in other parts of the world, because they know they don't drive more than 30 miles a day, just like Americans typically don't. But it's just that they are more comfortable with those types of limitations and being pragmatic versus this idealized, like, well, I could drive across the country. Obviously, we have more land here to deal with as far as going across all of the UK, for example. Maybe take you one or two charge stops versus obviously a lot more if you're doing cross country here in the States. But just that the difference of mentality, of culture. And again, it's more terrifying to be on a motorcycle whenever you're surrounded by F-150s than it is being on a motorcycle in Vietnam surrounded by other motorcycles, I'm sure. So the stakes are lower. And it's again just it's more accepted. And therefore more safe because it's more commonplace. So I think there's a lot of that as well. And yeah, I think that's probably a large chunk of it. And very interesting question though. Thanks for asking that, Good Stick. And TFI says the Outlander plug-in hybrid is a fantastic choice for that gentleman who asked earlier about alternatives for RAV4 CRV. Yeah, if they are interested in anything that's plug-in hybrid, I agree. That's a really good alternative for sure. Trenton Carguy said, I agree that the Outlander is really underrated. I actually prefer it to its Rogue cousin. Me as well. I agree. Yeah. I mean, again, I haven't driven the regular one, but just packaging, even the Outlander interior is nicer than the Rogue, surprisingly. And yeah, they just did a really good job on the new Outlander here. And Cesar says, thoughts on the Mark V R32 Volkswagen? I feel like it's a forgotten legend amongst the traditional all-wheel drive performance vehicles like the WRX, STI, and Evo. Yeah, it is a little bit more forgotten. You're right about that. And I don't think I've actually reviewed an R32 of that generation. I know I've done Mark V regular GTI. Yeah, I don't think I've done an R32 of that generation, or any R32 for that matter. I don't think. Yeah, they're really rare, and yeah, I think they're a little less. They've been a little bit less put through the ringer than all of the WRX STIs and Evos. That I feel like finding a stock one of those is nearly impossible. Versus I think the R32s had a more mature buyer who wouldn't go crazy on mods and stuff, so it was one that you can probably find a little bit easier these days, in decent shape. But yeah, I don't think I've ever reviewed one. I'd love to review one someday. But yeah, I agree. Very much a forgotten legend, I think. But it sounds like prices of those are starting to go up a good bit. So I think it's another one of those vehicles where people slept on them and now realized it, and now they're jumping all over them and yeah, trying to snatch them up before they get to be big money down the road. Because I think that is a vehicle that will, for again clean stock, decent mileage ones, I think will go for big money someday. And Danny says Yamaha made that 2ZZ from the final gen Celica GTS. Yeah, that's another one. I'm saying, yeah, so many good motors Yamaha did. And Drunken Car Guy says, now if Mitsubishi could just take that momentum and modernize the Mirage, because you can feel how dated it is. Yeah, definitely. And TFI says Outlander is also built in Japan, offers 7 seats and a 10-year warranty. I would avoid the 2024 Rogue for the time being. That 1.5 VC turbo already has issues. Interesting. I hadn't heard about those issues, so thank you for the heads up on that. And I agree. Yeah, that's another really cool thing about the Outlander is you get that 10-year warranty. The Rogue doesn't offer that. And so, yeah, Outlander is again, a solid buy. And again, they're plentiful too, which is great. Onan Fools, apologies, I didn't see your super chat till now. I don't know why YouTube didn't let me know about that better. But anyway, thoughts on future of turbo engines? I think they, have as good of a future as any other gas engine, really. I think, we are seeing, though, that majority of companies, whenever they're doing their hybrids and plug-in hybrids, typically elect to have a naturally aspirated engine in there for that, with some exceptions, Hyundai and Kia primarily being the main one that, has the turbo motor with their plug-in hybrids and regular hybrids, but everyone else seems to do it, with a naturally aspirated engine. So if, we continue to progress towards electrified stuff and everything being hybrid and plug-in hybrid, as we step towards, everything going EV, I think, you'll see probably less turbo stuff. I think you'll probably see more naturally aspirated range extender kind of stuff, being more prevalent going forward. So there will still be some turbocharged vehicles for those that are less electrified, or just higher duty, higher demand kind of things. For companies that don't have a V6 or don't have a V8 at their disposal, they can do that turbo motor instead. I think, for example, the F-150 is going to keep it around for a long time, and even if they go to more plug-in hybrid kind of F-150 in the future, I think you can see that still be running an EcoBoost motor for the extra demands of towing and things like that, where you need that boost a lot more. So I think there is some of that, for sure. And so yeah, I think turbo motors still have a pretty decent future here. And let me see, where were we here? So TFI says, yeah, the 2ZZ in the Matrix, Pontiac 5, Celica, Corolla is super slept on. It's cheaper than a similar Civic Si. Nice. Yeah, Celicas are so rare these days, but yeah, Corolla XRS, that's got to be another rare one. Pontiac 5 is definitely slept on though, for sure. I think no one has that car on their radar. And yeah, the Matrix too. Someone actually a long time ago offered me a manual Matrix to review, I think in New York or something. I just never got around to getting out there and reviewing it, but that'd be a fun one to try out someday for sure. And TFI says, don't ask Nissan for a Versa, ask a dealership or an enterprise rent-a-car. Yeah, that's true. That'd make it easier for sure. Again, it's all just about, I really like living with vehicles for a week, and I like, just kind of getting a really good feel for it. Enterprise, I guess could provide that, but then that's something I would have to pay for, and I don't have good profit margins on my videos. So it's got to be a very, very low cost thing, which is why I just wait for either press cars, wait for the dealerships that I do work with to get it in, or just owners offering their vehicles and just do it that way. But it's all got to be very cheap or free for me to review it. Otherwise, the profit margin quickly goes out the window there. Good success. My friend got a Mirage G4 as a loaner. He told us it was a Lancer. We cringed so hard. Oh man, yeah. I miss the Lancer though. I think it was a solid little car for a lot of people. But B. Mitchell says Nissan learned the hard way not to compete in the 3/4 ton up arena, so Toyota learned from them. Gotcha. Okay, makes sense. Yeah, because you're right. There was Titan XD, right, and then that just didn't do well, and Yeah, that probably explains it. So yeah, thanks for that insight, B. Mitchell. And Jeremy says, appreciate the channel. Been watching since way back when. I appreciate that. Thanks so much for the long time support. Really means a lot. And hope you're still enjoying the channel here these days too. And Douglas says, what are your thoughts on the Taycan? I really like the Taycan. I reviewed a Taycan Turbo earlier this year. And it was great. It's very well done. And is yeah, really, really, really cool. I think especially these days now that they're a lot cheaper. I think, I mean, obviously if you want the ultimate sporty, EV sedan, it's great if you have deep pockets, but I think really the value of those is the ones on the used market for half price now. That's a compelling vehicle in my opinion. I think they're really cool. And the TFI says it's kind of a shame that the Titan got dumped on. Was it really that bad? I've heard the Titan XD with the Cummins wasn't that good. Yeah, I have no experience with the XD. The regular Titan, just to me, was never competitive unless you got huge discounts. If it undercut significantly the competitors, then great, go for it. You want to save that money. But just, screen sizes were always smaller. Styling was always just a derivative of the others, primarily F-150. And I think it just, first gen Titan, I think seemed like it really was starting to gain a cult following. And then second gen, I think for a lot of people just kind of was a little underwhelming, I think. And that's what kind of hurt the momentum that they had. I think if they would have stuck with the first gen Titan and evolved that styling and kept it bolder and a little more daring and a little more honestly quirky Nissan than the regular competitors, I think it would have done a lot better than it did for the second gen. With second gen, it was just like a bad knockoff of an F-150. And no one wants to be in the knockoff, especially when it's basically the same price as the real deal. Why not just get the real deal and get an F-150 like every other person in the world? So I think again that was a problem, and so at the end of the day, they just had to rely on incentives to move them, and that's not a good business plan to long-term viability. So that's, I think, kind of, and at least from an outsider's perspective here, why Titan kind of crashed and burned. It just was never as good as the competitors. Zachary says, what brand has the strongest blind loyalty and why is it Subaru or Jeep? You are 100% correct. It is absolutely Subaru and Jeep. And it's a very good question as far as why. And it's hard to figure out. I think Jeep is a little bit more understandable because unless you're willing to go for a Bronco, Wrangler really is still a very unique proposition, especially offering the manual, but then also even just offering a two-door for people who want that, and truly being a very, very capable vehicle off-road. That a lot of other stuff can get close, but and some stuff potentially can be even better. But it is unique. So that I can see. It's really hard for me to justify Grand Cherokee, or even Compass, any of the other Jeeps outside of Wrangler, and even Wrangler. Again, Wrangler has still gotten so expensive that even that it's, again, you really again have that blind loyalty there to be like, do I actually do this kind of off-roading that I need a Wrangler for? If so, knock yourself out, enjoy it in good health. But if you are not actually going on trails, even once in a blue moon, then why are you punishing yourself with this rough driving experience for 60 grand or whatever? I mean, again, everyone likes something different, so I'm not going to judge, but it's just something I personally I can't I can't really relate, but that's okay. If everyone drove the same vehicles and drove what I thought made sense, it'd be a boring world. So it's all good. But yeah, the Subaru one is a little bit more mystifying because there's less of that unique factor, in my opinion. And Jordan says, sorry, I chimed in late. This might have been mentioned, but the Mazda concept car that may come to production is going to be absolutely stunning. I agree. If it comes to production even remotely close to that, it is going to be beautiful. And it sounds like it's going to be really close to that from a styling standpoint. So very excited for that. B. Mitchell says, from what I see in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, Subi worship is a form of political gaslighting. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, probably a similar kind of thing around here too in many cases. Yeah, it's just people just love their Subarus. And I mean, hey, again, you got a brand you love, stick with it. If you're happy, that's all that matters. Again, going back to earlier, don't do it for other people. Don't do what other people think you should do. As far as buying a car, at least, do what you feel like doing. And if, buying a Subaru makes you happy, go for it. But yeah, it is, from my analytical mind, it just is surprising whenever I see people, not going for better competitors there. And let me see. Linda says, I have two friends who love Subarus. By the way, my friend who just bought a Honda Civic manual is a girl. I can drive manual also, but manuals aren't fun where I drive. Well, that makes sense. And that's awesome that she was able to, enjoy the manual there. I hope she gets a lot of fun miles out of it. That's awesome. Brian says, my mom's car's fuel pump went out this past week. Good news, it's getting fixed. That's great. Hope she's back on the road soon. And sorry to hear that. It's one of those things that's almost like an age issue, I think, with fuel pumps on most vehicles, where it's just one of those things that gives out in time. It's a shame, though. SCTFI thinks we've reached peak turbo. The turbo lag from yesteryear is virtually non-existent. The problem with the new turbo engines is the super thin viscosity of oil being used and direct injection. Yeah, definitely those two things. But yeah, turbos are really, really good. I think it's just the turbo appeal it's very much a pragmatic thing these days. It's not quite as fun as it used to be. I think that's the sad thing. Turbo used to be this fun thing, obviously anyone, again, growing up in the Fast and Furious crowd, but it's just these days it's like, it's a turbo 4. It's always very predictable and ho-hum for a lot of these, motors. But so I do miss kind of the days when turbo meant fun and was more dramatic than it is. But yeah, they are very much, down to a science now, and very, very objectively better, in all the ways. But this is why I love like GR Corolla with its peaky motor. It doesn't make a ton of power down low. And I love that for it because it feels like an old school WRX and gives you that old school fun kind of turbo peaky rally car kind of feel that is missing from a lot of these other, very polished turbo motors we see in other stuff these days. TFI says we seem to be shifting back to naturally aspirated hybrid engines. Yeah, the extra oomph off the line helps. Yeah, definitely, for sure. Linda says, my days as a mom taxi are over. In the past, I loved my extended version Dodge Caravan. Nice. Yeah, this served many people, very well for a long time, and happy you're able to enjoy your fun Mustang then now, Linda. And Good Six says, what made you get interested in the S550 Mustangs? Did you consider getting the 2005 to 2014 Mustangs around the same time you got the first EcoBoost? Yeah, so I think, the reason why I loved S550, I think around that time when that launched was when my Mustang, infatuation, I guess I could say, was at a fever pitch. If you followed back then, and these videos are all still up there, if anyone's bored and wants to kill some time someday, I even did a video back when I had my BRZ when I first got it. It was a few weeks in, and I was like, because that video was titled like, I don't love my BRZ yet, ... And I was really actually debating, like, do I sell it and get a Mustang instead? Because I even back then really wanted a Mustang, even in those BRZ days. And so I did consider, something in that era. I really loved the 2013s, especially when they came out with that refresh. I was really into that refresh, and really strongly considered it. I think, I don't know. To me, the only thing about the pre-2015s was the interior still was just a little bit compromised to me, and I didn't love how the dash was super high. The ergonomics weren't super great. The materials and stuff were just and I didn't love all the packaging in the S197s. And so whenever S550s, had a lot of the new luxury features and were really modernized, had the metal switchgear, all these newer things to really, update it nicely, cooled seats. Maybe you could have gotten that in the last year or two of the Mustang for the S197s, but just S550 just really modernized everything, and just made it a little more accessible, in my opinion, I guess, as far as, lower dash, more comfort, more modern, safer as well, which is important for me. So there's a lot of those things that all kind of combined to make it a lot more interesting. But it was also just, again, the timing of like, again, I had already wanted one of the earlier ones, and then I see the new S550 and I was really into those. And so just kind of one thing led to another. But yeah, it's, thinking back on those days of the EcoBoost Mustang, that was a fun thing to try. And I think it was a fun leap for the channel, for a lot of my viewers who back in those days were still WRX fans who, because that was still my username back in those days, WRX fans that were curious about, hey, look, it's a new Turbo 4. Let's see how it does with mods. Let's see, what that's like in a Mustang. That was a new thing outside of, the Fox body SVOs from the 80s. So, I think it made sense to do on the channel, and I still think that it was probably the right move for the channel. But looking back, and I think about this from time to time. I don't know how much I talked about this in those videos, but at that point in time, I had sold the BRZ and I had a Mini Cooper S that was quickly falling apart. And it was just like, it seemed like the clutch was going to be going out soon at like 60,000 miles. And that's like a $3,000 job, or at least it was 10 years ago on an R56 Cooper S. So I was just like, I got to get out of this thing. So I had, even though I had plans for that car and was really excited about that car, and I loved that little Mini when it worked, it just didn't work very well. And again, in hindsight, I should have just milked that thing for every catastrophe I could have, and it would have been great content. And, my risk tolerance for stress just did not jive with, getting stranded on the side of the road for the views. But I almost bought a Fiesta ST. I got very close to the point where, like, I had the trade-in value agreed upon at the Ford dealer for the Mini. And it was a blue ST. It didn't have the Recaros, just like a base, basically, blue Fiesta ST. And it was there, and they had the paperwork signed, or the paperwork like on the table there. He's like, here's the deal. We had already, gone back and forth, and I was one signature away from buying that Fiesta ST. And I was so close to it. And I was like, I don't know, maybe I will try and, go, because, I did crowdfund, a down payment for the EcoBoost Mustang. And I was like, maybe I'll do that. I don't know. And, I just was kind of up in the air about that. And, in hindsight, with all the blowback on that and all that had happened, I regret not getting that Fiesta ST. They even like called me back a couple of times and were like, look, like we can come down a little bit more in price. And then at that point, I was just like, I think I'm just going to go and try and just go for the Mustang and shoot for the stars. But I kind of wish that I had just kind of lived within my means a little bit more and just gone for the Fiesta. And I think that would have been a really fun car. And I kind of am bummed I missed out on an ownership experience in that, because I think that's a really fun little car, and it would have been cool to kind of continue with kind of the same theme as the Mini, but hopefully with something a little bit more reliable. And because I really do enjoy small little hot hatches, and I've never actually properly owned one outside of that Cooper. So that's one thing I think about from time to time, as far as talking about going way back. Apologies for the tangent there, but yeah, I would have played that differently, I think, if I knew what I know now. But hindsight's 2020. But anyway, Jabbar says the issue is all the problematic 2.0T engines from the German brands that are essentially built to be disposable. They fail so early on in some cases. Definitely true. And a lot of them, again, that direct injection just wasn't very well sorted, so they got all gunked up, and you had to, walnut blast the intake valves and all that stuff, and exhaust valves, I think, too, and just all kinds of crap, with those. So yeah, not a lot of good stuff there. Andrew's asking, when am I getting my hands on the new WRX TS? Actually, I will be having that here this week, and that is one that is going to be jumping the line here, so there won't be too long of a wait for that. I will hopefully be posting that review here in, I believe that one's coming. Is either, I think it's sometime here this, I gotta look at my schedule, but I believe it's sometime either here this month or early next month for the WRX TS review. So stay tuned for that. I'm actually pleasantly surprised. I didn't think I was going to get that one for a while, and all of a sudden it popped up in the press fleet, and I was able to get it really quickly. So looking forward to trying out the TS here this week. And good success. Speaking of turbo engines, Honda recently unveiled their new motorcycle with a new electronic turbocharger, so it doesn't have any turbo lag. That's awesome. I mean, we're seeing a lot of companies going with electric turbos, and that's a really a great idea, I think. And hopefully, it further perfects those turbos even more and makes them really really impressive. Danny says, my parents are thinking about getting me my first car. They're thinking about getting me either a used hybrid or I get my dad's Bolt, which, by the way, the Bolt hit 68,000 miles, recall over 32,000 ago. That's awesome. Glad to hear the recall battery is holding up well for them. And yeah, I mean, it comes down to what your family thinks is best for you and what works best for them financially. But Bolt would be a great little first car, I think. Enough power to still have fun with, and something that has lots of space for friends and gear and all that stuff, and could be a fun little vehicle. So yeah, but congrats on hopefully getting a new car here soon for yourself there. That'll be fun, or new to you, I guess I should say. But B. Mitchell says, diesel rule number one, never buy a Cummins V8, period. Interesting. I feel like a lot of people, or maybe it's the Cummins 6 cylinders that everyone loves, right? So I guess the V8's the bad one. Good to know. Thanks for sharing, B. Mitchell. Good success. Spot of the week. I saw a 2019 Camry hybrid with a GR badge. What's wrong with people nowadays? Most normal people probably don't know what GR is. Enthusiasts do know. So why bother adding the GR? Yeah, that is very true. That's always been so strange to me because yeah, the people that would actually I think appreciate that, you're right, they know it's BS. So are you fooling yourself? Is it, I mean, I saw in my neighborhood here someone, I don't know if they were a resident or if they're a visitor of the neighborhood, but they had a regular, just boring second gen X5 with an M badge on it. And I'm like, okay, like it was no other attempts to convince anyone it's an M. And I'm like, what's the point of this? Yeah, like I mean, again, everyone likes different things. If it makes you smile to come out and pretend you have an X5M, go for it. But it's just like you're not fooling anybody. No one is ever fooling anybody, I don't think, with those things. You're better off if you try to impress people. Go out and buy a Chrysler 300 and slap Bentley badges on it. You'll probably have more people believe you for that and think you're actually rich or whatever, if that's what you're going for, Anyway, let me see. I see more discussion there about engines there. And let me see. From saying, thoughts on Crosstrek 6-speed manual. Is there something more fun I can get with equal or similar ground clearance? And that is, again, yeah, the perk of the Subaru is the ground clearance. I don't think you can do better with ground clearance outside of a Wrangler. It's the only other thing with a manual, especially, that's going to give you, potentially more fun if, adventuring kind of stuff is your vibe. If that's what you're going after, then absolutely, I think Wrangler could be an option for sure. Other than that, nothing else with a manual. I've never driven a manual Crosstrek, so I can't say, what it's like. But yeah, I think it's, again, a unique thing that they offer that. So if you are after a manual with that kind of ground clearance, those are really probably your only two options. So I don't think there's really anything else. I mean, I guess, Bronco also offers a manual. And honestly, yeah, if I were, again, if you want something that's that rugged, I'd say I definitely would take Bronco over Wrangler. It's a lot better driver, in my opinion. But yeah, in that kind of a case, Crosstrek totally is, going to be a fine choice. And I mean, I'd say, depending on, again, what you mean as far as fun and ground clearance, if you want a little less ground clearance, I'd probably just spring for a WX, a base WX for a couple grand more than a Crosstrek. It's not that big of a difference. But, if you are sticking to a strict budget, absolutely, by all means, Crosstrek is good to go. Good Six says, Tesla also has insanely high brand loyalty, not because of the car, but Elon Musk, especially when they only offer 5 models. Yeah, that's true. Tesla is another one with, I'd say nowadays, probably blind loyalty. I'd say previously there was more cross shopping involved in people that were probably blindly loyal, but are loyal no more because, again, he turned his back on the typical demographics that like Teslas and electric vehicles. So I think there's less of that now than there used to be. And so now it's just these new gen Tesla buyers maybe are very much, Elon supporters, but they're a very different crop of people I'd say in most cases, than the people that were buying Teslas before Elon did a 180. But yeah, I agree about people being very loyal to their Teslas. And Andrew's also asking WRX TS or limited trim. That's going to come down to what equipment you want exactly, and what stuff you want or need. But yeah, it just comes down to that. Do you need the adaptive dampers? Do you need the digital gauges? Do you need the touches of the TS? If not, limited's fine. I honestly think they're the best buys for a WRX if you're not going to go for like the TS or one of the sportiest ones. I just go for a base one or a premium if you want a moonroof or whatever. But like that's where the value is, because otherwise limited still has like partially cloth seats and isn't really that much nicer than a premium. So to me, limited is a hard one to justify. It's either everything or nothing with a WRX. Either go bare bones or load it up and get all the goodies for the performance standpoint, of the Brembos and all that kind of stuff. I think the middle ground isn't very good for the WRXs, especially those limiteds. And Rafi says maybe one day Subaru will give us an STI Crosstrek. I'd even just take a Crosstrek XT. Just put a turbo in a Crosstrek. With the amount of people, especially with how popular they are in places like Colorado and that, where you have, higher elevations where turbos are really beneficial. Those people are forced to go into either a older, like Forester XT or something like that, or they got to go into an Outback XT and get it that way. But, people who don't want to jump up to the size or the price of an Outback, I agree. I don't know why there's no turbo Crosstrek. It's really another strange thing that they didn't bother doing. But let me see. So we are over the 2-hour mark. So I'm going to do the last few member questions here, and then I will head out. But Good Stick says someone who traded in their 2012 Model S to get a 24 Model S would not be getting the best value, as they are literally paying for the same car that they traded in. Absolutely. With, I guess, a few improvements, but yeah, not a whole lot there. Michelle says, I feel like Volkswagen has pretty good brand loyalty. People tend to hate on them, but owners tend to be satisfied with them overall and don't experience any crazy issues. Interesting. I mean, yeah, I haven't looked into the data on that to, confirm or deny that. What I can say from my anecdotal evidence is my sister was really excited about, she had a Volkswagen Jetta. She leased it for 3 years. And she was disappointed in it. I mean, it was okay, but I believe she had to top off some oil on it, and the USB jacks never worked. They always blew fuses. And there was a few other weird little electrical gremlins she had in it. I mean, she liked a lot of it otherwise, but she leased the Jetta for 3 years, and then she was like, see you, Volkswagen. I'm going to go get a Mazda 3. And that was her next step. And now she's got the CX-5. So, I'm sure there is a lot of brand loyalty, but for her, the Jetta did not convince her to stick around, unfortunately. So let me see. Linda said, my husband was screaming and laughing the first time he used paddle shifters and drove my S550 Turbo 2017 Mustang. Nice. Hopefully it was a very good experience there, and that's fun. Yeah, it was really a switch with the turbo motor in the Mustang. It's cool they made that switch though. And B. Mitchell says, once you go S550, you don't go back due to IRS. Yeah, the independent rear suspension is really nice to have. I mean, again, there's perks for the live axle as well, like drag racing and stuff, but independent rear, yeah, it's definitely a lot nicer. And Strassi Stratus says the Cooper had potential. I think it did. Yeah, again, I think I just played that wrong in hindsight, but what can you do? Jordan says, how often do you receive over-the-air updates on the Mach-E, if any? Thanks for the live. Absolutely. So it varies. For a while there, they were coming in pretty consistently, like I'd say once every couple of weeks, sometimes even a little more frequent than that. And then it's really slowed down this year. Now, I think our last update we got was like maybe August or maybe early September, something like that. It's been a little while now. I mean, I think they've kind of refined a lot of the main stuff, and so there's not as much to do as there were in the first couple of years there. But they still do make little improvements here from time to time, and it's really cool they do that, because you'll open up the app and it'll be like, hey, we improved the HVAC system, or we tweaked this little thing or whatever. And it's nice to have the over-the-air updates in an active manner like that, instead of it just being like a fix for flaws. And so this is like actual enhancements and listening to feedback from the owners, and doing these little software tweaks that they can do. And Jabbar says, how long have you been interested in cars and what got you into them? Um, Really, my whole life. I don't know really why, because my dad was never really into cars. He was into Subarus, as I was a little bit later in my childhood. So I'd say the Subaru thing I have my dad to thank for. But as far as cars in general, I don't know, because he was never into cars. It was mostly baseball was the main influence as a kid, as far as any kind of suggestions of, hey, check out this cool thing. So the car thing was just me. It was just something, obviously like every, little boy, I have Hot Wheels cars and, you play racing games and things like that. And I think for me, I was like, wow, I really like this, maybe more than the average, kid does. And, I just kind of took it from there and that was it. And, so I think it's just always been something I've been fascinated with for whatever reason. But it's been really as long as I can remember. I think, the thing that helped me to make the leap from like casual, like I just like Hot Wheels cars to more serious enthusiast stuff, I would say, is Gran Turismo 2. My friend had Gran Turismo 1, but that came out before I had a PS1, and then so right around when I got my PS1 a little bit later. So by the time I had mine, Gran Turismo 2 had just come out, and so that was the first like actual like racing, it's like serious racing game that I had, beyond just the more casual arcade stuff that I had for Super Nintendo or whatever. And so I think that was what really kind of was like, oh wow, I can do all these different modifications. It really taught me about horsepower and torque and track driving and all these types of things. And so I think that was really the main thing. And that is one of the few games that I have saved. I still have my copy of Gran Turismo 2 there and my memory card that someday I'm hoping to fire up and seeing all my old save games and stuff someday. And Two, thanks so much for stopping by here. I was wondering if you were going to stop by tonight, so thanks so much, and thank you for the super chat. He says, trying to promote the Discord. Peter just dropped an open track. Go drop your verse. Yeah, so on the Discord there, we have some conversation. To his alter ego there, Peter drops some Maran motoring related rap tracks there that he generates, and so definitely check that out if you want a good laugh and some good beats. He's got some funny rhymes there, so check that out. And I see, yeah, Austin says 2 at the last minute. Yeah. So yeah, thanks so much for stopping by too. Let me see, last couple of questions here. Drunken Car Guy says it's almost like me slapping a Hellcat badge on my Magnum. Yeah, it's like crazy. Nikki, thanks for stopping by with your ownership impressions there on the manual Crosstrek. But says it's impossible to shift smooth. First gear's long. Shift from first to second takes a while with rev hang. For auto map is weird. Gotcha. So, but you loved it though, so that's good. Yeah, doesn't sound like a great manual experience there, which sadly sounds very much like a Subaru. So that's funny. Let me see. Austin's, yeah, wishing everyone a good week. I do as well. Good Six says, how do you think electric vehicles and AVA vehicles will change vehicle designs? Will we finally see distinctive car designs like the 1960s? I mean, I personally think we are already seeing very distinctive designs, depending on which companies you're looking at. But I think we have more distinctive designs now than we had in the 60s. I think the 60s, it was like everyone was like, ooh, we can do quad headlamps. Let's do that. And everyone did it in boxy, form factors because everyone was over the fins of the 50s, for the most part. And, it was, there's a lot of beautiful designs still in the 60s. Don't get me wrong. But I think now we have some really distinctive stuff out there. So I think that, I think as far as how car design will change though for EVs and, autonomous stuff and all that in the future, I think it's, going to be more about aerodynamics, I think. So there will be, I think, a resurgence of some of the like 90s styling trends of like streamlined stuff kind of making a little bit of a return potentially. But I think a lot of it's still people like boxy, rugged looking stuff. So I think you're going to see a lot of that, kind of 80s retro stuff going to stick around as well. And I think those are, so I don't think you're going to see too much of a shift styling wise, regardless of what's powering the vehicle and how it's being driven. But we'll just have to wait and see. Austin says, I own an R56 Cooper and it was a lot of fun, but cost me a lot in maintenance and repairs. Yeah, it seems like R56s are notorious for being like one of the worst ones. R53s are a close second, but R56 seems like it's the absolute worst from a reliability standpoint. Now these newer ones are like really solid because this is the BMW B48 motor. They've had a lot of time to work the kinks out of it, and so that is if I wanted a cheaper little car to run around in with a manual, I guess now prior gen, but basically current gen Cooper S would probably be something I would be very open and very tempted to try again. And knowing that it couldn't really go wrong, either it's a good, smooth experience and it's all good, or it could be another nightmare, which I think is very unlikely. But even if it were, again, I'd monetize the hell out of it and just, milk it for every penny I could. But yeah, I do love the R56s though. They drive great. I love that they still had just the simple tack in the middle there, and the big speedometer in the middle of the dash and everything. It just I still have a lot of love for those despite all the letdowns. But let me see. George quickly says, thoughts on Ford Bronco Sport, worth buying the 1.5 3-cylinder or the Turbo 4? I personally think that the 3-cylinder is plenty for a regular commuter vehicle. I already reviewed both of those, so definitely search on the channel if you want to hear all my thoughts on Bronco Sport. But I really enjoyed it. I did an Outer Banks, with the 3-cylinder, and then I did the Badlands or whatever they call it. I think it was actually like a first edition, but kind of Badlands kind of thing with a 2-liter. I mean, it's fun to have the extra power, but again, I think for most people, you're going to be fine with the Turbo 3. So hopefully that helps you a little bit. But yeah, I wouldn't bother with the extra power on the Bronco Sport personally. Truck and Car Guy says, have a good week, everyone. Happy Veterans Day to any veterans in the chat. I agree. Thank you for your service, veterans. Yeah, I absolutely. Thank you to all of those who have served and are serving. Really, really, we all, owe you everything. So thank you so much for your service to this country, especially these days. Service is something that I think, is slipping away from culture, not to get preachy or anything, but, I really think that people that are willing to make that sacrifice these days, it's something that we don't see as much of, I think. And so I think that means that for those who do make that sacrifice, it's even more commendable these days, in some cases, just because of that rarity of that mentality. So thank you so much for your service. So yeah, thank you all so much. I'd love to, stick around and answer all the questions here. But I do have to get going. But I see Steve's asking Civic Hybrid or Camry. Comes down to personal preferences there. I just did recent reviews on both of those, so definitely check those out to give you some advice on those. Personally, I think, I'd rather have the extra space of the Camry for basically the same kind of money. But Civic Hybrid's great too if you don't need the extra space, or you would like something a little smaller, or the hatch, is a cool reason to go for a hybrid Civic. And I see someone asking, will I review the C8 ZR1 next year? I hope so. Chevy isn't 100% with giving me every invite, especially for the Corvette stuff. I didn't get invited to Z06 or to E-Ray, but I did get invited to the regular C8 launch back in 2020. So we'll see what happens this go around. I'm not holding my breath, but hopefully I'll get one as a press vehicle, if nothing else, at some point later next year, maybe next fall or something. We'll see. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Have a great week, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.